Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the late show with your host, Young Brando, live from Los Angeles. We're going to talk about watches today. We're going to talk about my recent visit to the Chopard boutique at the South Coast Plaza for a presentation on Ferdinand Berthoud watches, which was eye-opening for me, which was really a beautiful experience made possible by the great people at Chopard Boutique in South Coast Plaza. So I thank them for that. But before then, I also have one more person to thank, our community member, Knight Rider, who sent me these two beautiful books. He had promised to send me this book on Cartier, which is really an auction catalog by the Monaco Legend Group. You remember we presented on a few auction previews for them. Davide Parmigiani, in collaboration with Claude Cohen, predictably based out of Monaco. We can go back also to look at some of their auction results, but it is really these kinds of auctions, public events, building on the horological commitment and aesthetic principles of a brand that catapult them onto the next level. And that's what happened to Cartier. Look, there is the conventional narrative about the hype around the Nautilus, and by all means, it did have a lot to do with Drake picking up on it, Future picking up on it, and of course the late Virgil Abloh picking up on it, so on and so forth. It had something to do with the hype around the Nautilus. But then again, even mainstream rappers and hip hop artists wore all sorts of hype watches, and it never made its way to the mainstream in such a strong way. So a lot of different things had to align, and there are a lot of things that were working within the horological conversation that made it possible for the Nautilus. They had this globally traveling exhibit, for example, that culminated somehow in New York City in 2016, for the 40th anniversary of the Patek Philippe Nautilus. I know Christie's at the time put together an auction particularly centered around the model, and the stories I was hearing at the time was that they were having a hard time selling some of those Nautiluses in in 2016, and we're talking about um, not some sort of authorized dealer that is in a relatively small town of the US, but about a major auction house who was doing this multi-legged enterprise to celebrate this particular model. But they had to do all these pushes. Patek had all sorts of events going on in the year of 2014, which was their 175th anniversary. A lot of special models. So these things don't happen all of a sudden, right? It's just like luck or good fortune. We like to say, if you believe in those things, we like to say you create your own luck, right? Which really is just another way of saying that you got to put in the work. You have to invest all you can. You have to make all the right moves until you get that pat on the shoulder, or until you get that gentle nudge, a little bit of push that helps you cross over a threshold. I made that similar argument about Cartier. You know, if they were not doing all these great things at CP Collection Privée Cartier Paris towards the end of the 20th century, for that one decade, 1996, 2006, if I'm not mistaken, they couldn't suddenly burst onto the scene as they did, and even overtake Omega as the second most selling Swiss watch brand. And that means a lot, as you know, because at least within our generation, at least while we're still alive, it's really unforeseeable that anyone would overtake Rolex, because they just sell, both in terms of units and in terms of sheer um, revenue generated. They are basically the next 4 or 5 of their rivals combined. So that was the Cartier catalog that we can look into later on during the broadcast. And Knight Rider was nice enough that he also added this extra gift for me, which is, again, a little bit of a catalog that's called The Beauty of Variations, the Rolex Submariner. The vintage concept is, of course, a dealer based out of Hong Kong. I don't know if you are familiar with their Instagram page, but I'm going to share it in the link in the chat now. If you didn't know, it's both good and bad, because on the one hand, you have been missing out on a lot of these um, very beautiful, charming, authentic, and just fascinating examples of a lot of great vintage watches. Um, it was a good thing that you missed out, because it's also kind of I don't know, discouraging, not heartbreaking, but in a way devastating sometimes, to see how they can have some of the rarest vintage Rolexes, especially, that is their specialty, and Submariners even more so. Anywhere else, you know, you can spend your entire life as a vintage watch dealer and not see, you know, one of these 369 dial or Explorer dial Rolex Submariners, right? They have existed as 6538. They have existed as 5513 as well, with crown guards. But in either case, they're extremely rare. When they come, you know, when they come up for auction, or when they come up for sale anywhere, it's hard to see them going for less than $250,000. And you would see that they would have a whole spread, you know, not a couple, not a few, but like an entire tray of Rolex, vintage Rolex Submariners with 369 dials, with Explorer dials. So they're great. They always have the best inventory objectively. They have just about anything and everything you would want, you would want to see. So even as a source for learning, which is how we use on this platform, the auction houses as well. It's a great establishment. Check them out, the Vintage Concept Official. But yes, above all, thank you, my friend, Knight Rider, for taking the time out of your day and choosing these two wonderful presents for me and sending them to me. I really appreciate you. But let's dive right in. I will start with a couple of Chopard pieces, actually, from my last visit as well, because that to me was the beginning of how this particular relationship with the boutique at South Coast Plaza. And you remember I had made my way down to Costa Mesa for the watch time event. And Chopard was actually one of the spots. And they were really nice to me in showing me a lot of different watches they had. And I was particularly intrigued by this LUC example of their Alpine Eagle, because the model itself is, I think, very impressive to begin with. I like the story of the model. I like the fact that it is based on a model, based on a design, based on a concept that the current president, Karl Friedrich Schäufele, brought to the table when his father was still at the helm, and his son, in the same way, approached him to reintroduce it. The model was at that time called St. Moritz, and it came back as the Alpine Eagle. I think mostly because of naming rights, because they actually had struck a deal with the municipality, I think, of the town, and they were basically paying them royalties. So I'm sure they wouldn't want to have another town to take a cut out of their loot, so to speak. But this is the model that they introduced in 20. Well, this is the design that they introduced in 2019, and maybe it got lost a little bit in the noise, since we have been living within this hype of integrated bracelet, stainless steel, luxury sports watches, right? It's a mouthful, anyways, and it is getting a little bit tiring. And you can say, even if the original is an earlier design, that there are aspects of it that might seem derivative, and I won't necessarily argue with you. But I think there's a lot to like about the bracelet, even though it is, comparatively speaking, harder to adjust to your wrist. I think it's a little more arduous to take links out than a lot of these other models. Um, it also happens to not have any of these quick change, etc. strap solutions. So it has some practical drawbacks as well. But I think the Alpine Eagle has basically one of the best and most unique dial designs, and you can see how it shines through here, even through that whole plastic wrapping scheme they had, for all rights, and even even next to those grimy bracelets that I had to have on as part of the watch time event. So this was a great watch, and this is a very special version of it, because um, actually the standard Alpine Eagle does not have that LUC veneer, that LUC cachet, that added value of Louis Ulysse Chopard manufacture, because it has a standard, pretty average automatic movement with a full rotor. It doesn't take advantage of that 1.96 or 196 caliber that Chopard uses as a base, or the architecture of which Chopard uses even in their more complicated movements. That is part and parcel of the ecosystem that they have built, and they have participated in building in Fleurier, which, of course, did not have the same kind of immediate recognition as Geneva, as even Le Sentier or Le Brassus. But it came onto its own with the kind of work that Chopard put in. Of course, Parmigiani Fleurier is there now, Beauvais is there, the movement manufacturer Vaucher is there, and many other elements. But basically, one of their first projects was to give basically Michel Parmigiani a blank check and about half a decade to design for them a movement from scratch. And basically, Michel Parmigiani created for them this micro rotor movement 196 or 1.96, which visually looks perhaps similar to Patek's micro rotor movements, but nevertheless has a 62-hour power reserve, whereas I think Patek's caliber 240 has merely 50, if not less. In either case, this also has a bidirectional charging micro rotor, which in a way fixes the finickiness that you might get from some micro rotor movements. And finally, of course, compared to the full rotor automatic self-winding caliber version of the Alpine Eagle, this version is also, of course, slimmer, more slender, because you essentially remove the full rotor and find a way to sink in that micro rotor into the architecture of the watch movement. So by definition, micro rotor movements would be, as a rule, thinner than full rotor movements, with most hand-wound movements being even more slender than either one. So this is a very special version, of course. As you can see, it is one that also has a tourbillon, has also a caliber, which is one of the thinnest tourbillon calibers in the world. And it's a flying tourbillon, as you see, because it's not, it does not have a bridge. And of course, doubles up as it should be on a wristwatch, at least if you ask me, as small seconds as well, which is a neat trick. And I love the fact that this eliminates that unnecessary date window and changes the focus of that iris or eagle's eye design of the dial, and it now emanates from the tourbillon itself rather than the dead center of the dial where the hands are deployed. So this was a beautiful watch, or one of the beautiful watches that they had shared with me on the last visit, which is the Chopard Alpine Eagle Flying Tourbillon. And on this visit, actually, I had the chance to look at two other Flying T twins, which in and of themselves, I think were very stunning. Hey guys, I want to welcome you also. Bruce, lovely to see you. Nick, hey, I've seen your message from 2 weeks ago as well. It hadn't dropped to my desk through YouTube. So thank you for posting that note on your community board about 2 weeks ago when I actually got monetized. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate that you took time to do that. And what a kind message that was. Thank you so much. Peeping Time, lovely to see you. Big Meech is eating up. Hey, please be my guest after you finish. Feel free to jump on. Mookie is here. Peeping Time is landing the Eagle. The Eagle has landed. St. Peter, nice to see you. Nice to see you. I look forward to seeing you in person in December, of course. So this time when I went, while I was waiting for the presentation to get ready, in terms of the Ferdinand Berthoud watches, I was treated to some of these beauties from Chopard. As it happens, I didn't have time to process these videos, so I apologize. They might be a little too bright, but hopefully you'll be able to appreciate some of the um, some of the details on these watches. It's really, when it comes to Chopard and Berthoud, it's really testament to the kind of philosophy that Carl Friedrich Schäufele has in his mind and has implemented throughout these brands. He really spares no expense when what is at stake is horological greatness and design. Both of these flying T twin tourbillons have gold dials that are engine turned, that are hand guilloche decorated with quite an intricate honeycomb like design in the middle. They're both also, of course, have the dial fixtures that match the case, and finally, also have this radial decoration at the hour ring as well. And I was kind of trying to wrap my head around some of these questions earlier, a couple of days earlier, when I was talking to Watch Nicholas, that it's mind blowing to me that Chopard doesn't have a lot of recognition, that a lot of what they do simply goes unnoticed by the majority of even the most committed watch enthusiasts. And I can't understand, and maybe you will help me see it, because they also have one of the most beautiful web pages as well. Let me see. Because when you pull up, for example, this particular model, the Flying T tourbillon, and its page, like, they have this video that I've never seen on, the kind of it I have never seen elsewhere. They have this entire animation of how the watch comes together, how the tourbillon is fit. And they will basically take us from here, from the beating heart of the watch, step by step, until the very end, when we will see the dial taking shape, and finally the watch fitting together. And this, of course, just like the Alpine Eagle we have seen before, that only goes for the flying tourbillon iteration of the Alpine Eagle. Both of these twin tourbillons, twin flying T tourbillons, are Geneva seal calibers and cases. As you know, that is a standard now that applies to every single part of the watch in terms of assembly and in terms of finishing. You see that radial guilloche decoration, and finally um, the center part that comes together. I mean, in most on most brand websites for watch manufacturers, you have a hard time finding any information about their watches. This website is teeming with different kinds of information. It has this wonderfully engaging 90-second video. Um, all their website is full of the different aspects of their philosophy and of how they have invested all these resources into ethical practices of production and sustainability. They have so many, between Chopard and Berthoud, they have a few uh, Grand Prix awards under their belt already, especially for chronometric precision. And yet, barely anyone talks about them. I mean, whenever their name is brought up, don't take me wrong, everyone will give a tip of the hat. Everyone will say, oh, yeah, I love Chopin. And this goes for me as well. A lot of these people who love Chopin don't have a single piece by them in their collection. And I'm not necessarily talking about these sorts of pieces, the flying tourbillons of the world, which are priced, of course, at six figures, low six figures and up. I'm also talking about a lot more accessible pieces that they make, which carry the Geneva seal or their own testing and certification method, which is called Qualité Fleurier, which in fact is even more advanced than the Geneva seal, in the sense that it actually integrates into its tests chronometer certification. Not that Chopard shies away from that certification as well, as well as what they call, in a terrible pun, Fleury test, which is literally a special machine that simulates the wear and tear and the kind of shock and other um, threats that the watch might get exposed to during the daily routine of a watch wearer, of a watch enthusiast. So it's been just honestly mind-blowing to me in general. I never found an answer to this question. Maybe one of you can tell me, because they do have a lot of interesting watches that are between $10,000 to $15,000 segments, that are not incredibly accessible, but certainly available to those people who buy a Rolex any day for sometimes multiple times that price at a huge markup, at a premium on the secondary markets. But yes, they don't really receive the same kind of consideration at all. St. Peter says, I love Chopard and Ferdinand Berthoud, such wonderful pieces of craft and design. I completely agree. I think with Chopard, actually, I'm playing dumb a little bit. Of course, it has a lot to do with marketing. It has a lot to do with really the kind of work they really need to do in clarifying their lines, their product lines, really making it really specific, what they do and what they're trying to do with LUC Chopard, with their actual manufacturer, deciding once and for all what they are doing in Geneva, what they're doing in Fleurier. You know, do you want to make your high level, high end watches in Geneva under the Chopard brand name and have Geneva seals on every single one of them, and you eliminate the rest of the LUC line, or find a way to integrate it downwards to Chopard if you can't actually bestow them with the Geneva hallmark? Or perhaps do you produce your, run of the mill average LUC Chopard, your average Chopard in Geneva and carry everything else to Fleurier, and again have a very well focused line of watches that only abide by that highest standards. And let me know, by the way, that I can actually our live stream to some of the accessible LUC Chopard watches, because it runs the whole gamut, right? They have, for example, their new Qualité Fleurier watch that is priced at their boutique for 21,200, but that you can basically find every day on the secondary market for right under 15,000. They have their other and earlier Qualité Fleurier models and editions that are even cheaper than that, and that are again incredible pieces. Like they have, for example, this pink gold version of the Qualité Fleurier chronometer. This is a gorgeous watch. It's 39 millimeters. I think it's less than 8 millimeters thin. So extremely wearable, very elegant, very simple in a lot of its design elements, that it can be mistaken for a classic dress watch. But then it has a couple of more modern touches, like the stylized lugs that seem to be attached to the perfectly round case, the syringe hands that are also very nicely loomed along with the rest of the dial. So what you have is basically an incredibly well-built chronometer standards, and also very elegant modern dress watch, right? Once again, a ruthenium dial that is given this sunburst finish that emanates from the O of Chopard, rather than, say, the center of the dial. So there are a lot of little touches, design elements, as well as horological standards that Chopard keeps up, that a lot of the more expensive and mass-produced products of high horology can't even hold a candle to. So it's a little bit unjust, if you ask me. But then again, sometimes I don't even think that they do justice to themselves, because I feel that perhaps their priority has been getting that kudos, getting that respect, getting that recognition from their peers in Geneva, that maybe they lost sight of the fact that this is a product that they also need to sell. This is a product that the end customer also needs to know about in the first place and get excited about in the second place to make that purchase. Because whether we're talking about $10,000, as is the case with this watch, or 15, as is the case with the secondary markets price points of their QPS twist Qualité Fleurie watch. Ultimately, people need to know that these watches exist. Ultimately, people need to know why they should be buying them, why they actually present such an amazing value, even at that low five-figure range. Because I don't think people really miss out on the more elevated, more obviously high horological and complicated examples of these brands. They seem to capture the conversation quite easily in those trade shows, in Watches and Wonders and beyond. Oh, hey, how are you doing, Meech? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Oh Lord.
Happy Halloween.
The same to you, good sir. Same to you. I suspect. I know you said you live in an apartment, but I suspect that you got your cough drops ready, just in case. Just in case. You never know.
You know, I have to give it to you, Meech. Of course, that was an easy excuse for me. Um, yes, I do live in an apartment in New York and in Los Angeles. That is mostly the experience. You know, if you live in a building, apartment building, and you are just ensconced in your place, no one will really ring your door. We don't have a lot of kids to begin with who live in this building. So it's not going to happen. I could have gotten myself into some sort of trouble. Um, I could have, celebrated the thing a little more enthusiastically. But as I like to say, it's already a lot of work trying to be myself. So I have no time or headspace to get into costume, and parade myself around in some kind of disguise. So I'm kind of a Grinch. So you have diagnosed me perfectly. I used living in an apartment as an excuse, but I wouldn't have participated otherwise either.
I'm kind of curious, Lord, and I won't judge, and I don't know, maybe keep it vague. But is there like your apartment more or less like a shadier part of the town? Is that kind of the reason why you don't have any visitors? I'm not
No,
trying to
I
be a
mean,
dick or anything,
no,
but
no,
you
no.
know.
Look, I have no shame. In downtown has not been historically a residential area in Los Angeles, right? It just was having its moment starting with early 2000s, and it had gotten to a level right before the pandemic where it started to become exciting to a lot of people. So people started basically pouncing on these places because it's close to Staples Center, because it's close to all these nice restaurants and bars. But of course, it was still also close to one of the largest tent
What is that?
cities.
What are you getting? No, don't let it go. No. Just just give me 1 minute, Lord.
No worries.
Yeah, just give me 1 minute.
No worries. Yeah, so responding to Meech's question, of course, wherever you find yourself residentially downtown, chances are that you are not too far away from a certain kind of business district, which has always been there in a way in downtown LA, but also one of the most derelict, abandoned, and destitute places on Earth, certainly in the Northern Hemisphere, which is Skid Row, right? So, um, downtown is a mix. It can after dark, certain parts of downtown can be a real hell. Not perhaps for a man of my size, but Meech, I wouldn't choose to live but on my own in downtown LA if I were a young woman. So it's
I
not the
mean, I
best
think
part
that's
of
the
town.
general consensus, though,
It's
right?
not
Like, you
it's
never
not
want to
the
live
worst.
downtown.
Right. And Los Angeles downtown in many ways can be so much worse than many other downtowns. But right before the pandemic, it was actually becoming really exciting for even younger people to live, and the rents had this trend of going sky high, and they have dipped, and they are now picking back up again. But I can't wait to move out, and that's actually happening in 2 weeks. So I'm very happy about that.
Oh, well, congratulations. And you'll forgive the interruptions here. Or at least if you can hear my cat in the background. Yeah, she just brought a
So
mouse
what?
to me and then decided to drop it. And now the mouse is currently underneath the fridge here. So she's going to sit here and wail as loud as she can. I wish she hadn't dropped it. But hence the situation.
I was wondering what was going on because you looked. I mean, you sounded quite distressed. Um, and you have a new dog too, apparently, right? Is that right?
Yeah, that's been yeah. I got a new dog. I suppose now it's been a month.
Hmm.
About a month now. Yeah, I suppose it's been about a month since I've gotten her.
So what? She's about 3 months old now, or older.
4 months. 4 months.
Well, okay, nice. What kind of dog is it? Should I pull up a picture?
Yeah, sure. It's entirely up to you. Yeah. So, I guess a long story short here, I had inquired with a neighbor here that only lives, maybe 5 miles down the road from me. And I called probably earlier this summer, and I was asking for kind of a herd dog essentially. So, in an ideal world, I would have liked a border collie that can herd sheep. Um,
Hmm.
And she's like, well, she said, I might have something. She said, I've got this Australian Shepherd here. Now, I've heard a couple different things about Australian Shepherds. I've heard Australian Shepherds, they do very good work, but um, they're also very a lot more aggressive because Australian Shepherds are primarily used for cattle, so like Angus, big Angus beef cattle. So they tend to be a little bit more, like I said, aggressive. Anyways, I get a call from the neighbor about a few weeks back. Well, I suppose now it's been about a month or so. And she's like, "Hey, we got, she said, I've got a few Australian Shepherds here." She said, "I think they might be what you're looking for." And so, long story short, I decided to take a look at one, and I figured, you know what? My black lab has not had a companion for the past 3 years, and I'm just, it's more or less my fault for not being more involved with her because I had the husky, and the husky was 8 years old, and this black lab's now probably coming up on 5. So obviously, there's a huge gap there. So I figured with this Australian Shepherd, one or two things will happen. She'll either do the job that she's required to do, and that's great. If not, if she doesn't, it's a win-win because my black lab now finally gets a companion as well. So she
Nice.
takes on. I mean, she really doesn't need a whole lot of training. I mean, she's fairly self-aware of what's right and what's wrong for the most part. Um, I would like to get her in for schooling here on December, but I want to get her spayed first. And schooling, I think they said they can get her spayed like the first week of December, and her schooling would start towards the end of or no, excuse me, mid-December. And I asked the veterinarian, I said, would that be rushing it too much if I put her through schooling? They said, we prefer you didn't. So I
Mm.
think her schooling will start next year, early spring. Um, but in the meantime, yeah, she's great. She's great thus far. She doesn't cause too much troubles. Stays outside 90% of the time. We'll see how this winter goes. I've only my heated office is only technically suitable for one dog. I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to work around having two dogs. But you know what? Either way, I'll figure it out.
Very cool. Very cool. They both look really cute. I of course I have a soft spot for puppies as everyone else does. You know that you can see how her mouth is still rather pink. You know that looks great.
Yeah. And you know what? You know, it's a bit of a added bonus. Because my veterinarian clinic's right next to one of my Rolex boutique
Uh-huh.
stores, and we always pop in there, and they're always delighted to see her as well. So, um, guess the only downside is we haven't learned. I don't know. I guess it's not really her fault. Um, but when she gets really excited, she decides to squat and pee like on the spot. So, um, we're still kind of working on that. I don't know. I don't know if that'll ever be like a problem that we fix or not, or if that's going to be just one of her natural things. I don't know. But for the time being, she's just a pup, so it tends to slide.
It's amazing. Hmm. Wow. Any so you are saying you will use your dog for pulling in another Rolex at the authorized dealer? Is that what it has come down to?
I don't know. I think yeah, we're going with psychological warfare at this point. I mean, desperate times calls for desperate measures. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Nice. And you were also saying that you are kind of thinking of hanging up the gloves, that you were maybe at least taking a sabbatical on your illustrious career as a watch collector. Is that right?
That is correct. The Meech was considering retirement, but uh, with the uh, with the upcoming year and potential spike in interest rates, I don't know if I really want to buy a truck
That's
this
right.
year or this upcoming year. I mean, I could swing it, but I actually need the credit history. So like technically I only have like 3 years worth of credit history on
Mhm.
deck. And I talked to a bank a couple of weeks ago, and I said, you know, they said, what are you looking to do? And I said, well, I'd like to build my loan history up a little bit,
Mhm.
because I only have like two vehicles on my entire loan history, and my objective is to be able to have like enough loan history so I can start actually buying land down the road. And you need to have a fair amount of loan history and good credit to be able to do so.
Right.
Anyways, long story short, they said you got your credit down to a patch. She's like, you're at a 790. She said, so we can approve you up to like 70,000 with a collateral and 50,000 with zero collateral. So I'm just like, okay, well, let me just kind of shop around, and I just kind of, I don't know. I mean, she was offering me 5% interest for 8 years. And don't get me wrong, that's not bad, but it's not great either. I mean, like my last interest was like 2.5%. Um, but like I said, you know, I mean, I also kind of think, do I really want a car payment when we're about to hit like the peak of a recession as well? So if I don't go with another car, I might start pursuing. Honestly, Lord, I gotta be honest with you. I gotta be frank and honest with you. I want a solid gold
Gotta,
piece.
gotta, gotta,
I
gotta.
gotta be frank and honest with you. I gotta be totally honest with you.
Yeah,
Um,
please. Can you? Can you
I've
be
got a
honest?
tax bill, Lord. I've got a tax bill that's due. And the
Do
money
you
that
do
you
you
give
need
me,
20K Aussie dollars? Is that what you need for it?
yes, it would greatly help meet some obligations that I have to attend to. But BS aside, I actually am considering a solid gold piece, but I don't know if I really want to. I don't know if I want to pursue Paddock yet or not.
Mm.
Because I actually was looking at a JLC today in solid gold. Kind of fucked up, but
But
Yeah.
what kind of JLC? I know between us it usually means a reverso, but it doesn't have to be. What were you looking at?
Oh God, no, reversal, reversal or bust, reversal or bust.
Yeah, the look, especially, we are suffering from small wristitis, the two of us. So I can relate. One of the great models for that, of course, it's not in production anymore. It's not your style really to stoop down to my level as a punter and get things on the secondary market. I understand all of that. But one great option would be, of course, to go with one of those older tributes, of the pink gold, for example, with the ultra thin caliber, the
Right.
the Grand Tie case, but so thin that it sits even better than the average one. Certainly better than a lot of what they have in precious metal right now, which is like the triple calendar, for example, the dual face and whatever. Those are gigantic. I mean, really large for what you expect the reverso to be, which is already a very, very present watch. It's the kind of watch that already announces its presence even when it's small. Those calendar ones are just gigantic.
The thing is, though, Lord, I'm gonna have to somehow dump out of my reversal, and
Right.
that's gonna be. I don't think I'm gonna be able to get out of that without actually getting absolutely rocked on that one on price. I mean, it's complete dog shit on resale.
Yeah, look, I mean that's the thing. I have been the biggest advocate for the reversos in saying you have to go out, you have to choose them, by material, by design, by complication, by size. But of course, when you get so specific in your choices and you decide that the classique, which is the smaller, more traditional proportion, if that is the best for you, just like you get burned with a lot of 36 millimeter Rolexes, for example, you end up with a watch that's harder to turn around, harder to um, fold into another watch, even if it's another reverso. So it's not
Right.
going to
Well,
be easy
I'd
to sell.
lose 3 grand guaranteed, even if it was on trade. I'd lose 3 grand guaranteed on this watch. I mean, it's a pain in the ass, honestly. I'm just glad I didn't pay retail for it, which I think if I had paid retail for it, I would have been at 7 grand. Well, I think I would have been pretty close because retail price was 6,500. By the time you had 7.6% on tax, it would have been pretty close to
Mm.
seven. And I walked out the door with it for six. Um, but yeah, no, I think that's the problem. The other alternative would be to go a vintage route. I don't know why. I just have a weird itch for a vintage right now, and I just don't know why. But I figured, you know what? Um, Maybe get some jingly jangly, cheap and nasty vinyl shitters back in the collection.
What what about something like this? Is this too much for Meech?
Not at all. Not at all. It's just I can't. I don't know if I really want two reversals on deck though. Like I want to dump. I want to be able to
No,
dump
no.
out of one.
That's what I mean. That's exactly the kind of um perspective I have on the situation as well. You find a way to sell what you have already, which is the Reverso Classique, which is a nice watch, but
It's
you
actually
want to.
discontinued, Lord. It's actually just, which
Right.
even makes it even harder to dump out of.
Right, and somehow moving to this, they also have this in white gold with a white dial, and in rose gold with a white dial as well, and the back of it is of course a blank canvas, so it can be an interesting um, possibility. You don't have to do anything to it. Probably you're happy that you didn't do anything of the sort to your current reverso, since you haven't really bonded with it. um,
No, and it's actually I actually looked into the customizations, engraving options, and you can really go for like for my size, you really don't have a whole lot of options. I think I had like a handful, like 3 or 4 options I could have
Right.
chose for an engraving, which I thought was, I don't know, I didn't see it worth the effort or the financial burden.
Hmm. Yeah, I think these are actually, I know people have a soft spot for the US limited edition of the steel version from the earlier 90th anniversary tributes. These ultra thin precious metal ones, which they came out with on the 90th anniversary with the white dials for both pink gold and white gold. And this came out a few more years down the line with the chocolate brown dial. I think these are actually my favorites when it comes to their 90th anniversary models, when it comes to their ultra thin calibers. So you get something basically that's very special, that's an anniversary model, that's limited, and in a way represents some of what JLC has to offer. Some of the best of what JLC has to offer, which is Reverso as an iconic model, but also the ultra thin caliber as really their bread and butter since the early 20th century.
Actually, Lord, while we're talking solid gold here, my good friends at Wix's Jewelers of Minneapolis, Minnesota, guys,
Right.
check them out. Lowest prices on the market to date, can't be beat. They actually just took in a solid gold date just, which I thought was a little interesting. I don't think the bracelet is period correct, though, if I'm being honest with you. Then again, I don't know a whole lot about the solid golds. I believe they were discontinued in the 80s, if I remember correctly, right?
Hmm.
I could be completely wrong, but I seen they took one in on trade, and I thought, huh, that's a bit interesting. And
It's
funny enough, they
it's a
have,
vintage piece. Is
yeah,
it
it'd be in
already
the
on their website?
vintage. Yeah, it should be.
Uh-huh. There it is. The date or date just?
They just the day date they've got plenty of, but the date just a little bit more uncommon.
I mean, the date, is it this one?
Yeah, yep.
Right.
See, but that bracelet doesn't look right to me, though, Lord. I thought they came with a presidential bracelet on the solid gold. They
No,
just
no, no. The president bracelet is only reserved for the day date, even for the solid gold models.
Didn't I thought they did them for date just for a period, and then they discontinued it and then
Oof.
made it exclusive for day dates. Yeah,
Look
it's
at
got
this.
major
Look at
elephant trunk
this.
there. Yeah, the bracelet's shot.
Wow. Even I take pity looking at this. The Meech has been considering something like this.
Well, I'm not saying I consider it. I just found it interesting. I mean, you don't see too many of them running around, or at least I haven't anyway. I know they were just. I know they're. I don't know. Controversial.
Oh my God.
Because
With all due respect, look at what they wrote in the description of this bracelet. They're saying dating to 1978, the watch was just fully serviced, God bless, and the 14 karat gold USA Jubilee is also in excellent condition with minimal wear.
yeah, no, no.
Jesus.
Whoever writes up their fucking reports is just clearly not fucking looking at the watch, and they just write up the reports. But I don't know. I think it's interesting. Like I said, you just don't see too many of them, and I know they're controversial.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a very elegant watch.
I wouldn't pay
Um,
10 grand for it though. I'd probably pay at max maybe 5.
they're not going to give you this for 5.
Oh fuck no.
Maybe you can shoot for 7, but look, here's what it is. You will need to put aside about 4 months and $800 to $1,000 for the restoration of that bracelet. If you're sending it to, say, to Hong Kong to Michael Young, the gold bracelets, they just charge more for them to restore. And finally, you'll have to wear it in the first year mostly on your cheap and nasty leather strap.
It's ironic.
It really is when you think about it. So I don't know, man. I mean, I feel like even if you're not shooting for Patek or Lange or something like that, I feel like for someone like you, who's a bracelet person through and through, you have to choose something that's not made for a bracelet, because in your mentality, this is a Rolex, it comes with a bracelet. You will feel like it's a downgrade to put it on a leather strap. I have a different mentality
I
towards
don't
it.
even think it's
You know
that,
me.
Lord. I
But
feel like a fraud wearing this. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it's fun. It's cheeky. It is what it is. I mean, what you see is kind of what you get. But I feel like it's just you're lying to yourself, right? This is the poor man's day date. It's what you buy when you can't afford a real day date.
yeah. Hey, Loose Tooth. Hey, Full On John. Evan. Nice to see you. Yeah, look, I mean, you might think that, but then again, I don't know, man. It's in a way, Day Date is an iconic design. I love it myself, but it's also, even on a leather strap, it's a heavy watch. And I'm not just talking about the weight. You know, um, both the day opening at 12 o'clock and the date at 3, it's like there's too much weight on that watch. I feel like, you know, it's kind of, it can be exhausting to even look at, much less to carry on your wrist. I mean, that's why I was offered a couple of times the Day Date 40, and I've always turned it down because I'm already treated as a potential sugar daddy by so many people. You know, if I wear that watch, I won't escape that character to begin with. So
I think
it's
you're
like
right, Lord.
it's
I
too
think
much.
it's better to buy one pre-owned on a 30, especially on a 36 mil. I mean, they just fucking tank too damn hard. I mean, you're walking out the door paying 34,000, and by the time you get to your car, it's basically a $24,000 watch. No
Yeah.
matter where you try and flip it, it's terrible.
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, it's if you can find one with the bracelet mostly intact, you know, in wearable condition at least, you know, without the need for restoration, it's a great watch. I would get it at any rate. You know, even if I were a bigger guy with a fatter wrist, I would still get the 36 on the secondary market. You know, 4 digit, 5 digit. I think the 40 is just, it's really too much of a watch,
It's
man.
too
It's like
heavy. It's way
on the
too
full
heavy.
bracelet. Like, again, you know, I know it's also a lot of money, but you know, as an analogy, for example, the platinum datograph, Lange's chronograph, it's already a heavy hitter on a leather strap, but they do have it on the beads of rice full platinum bracelet. I feel that's a lot of watch to wear, you know, especially if you are wearing it a few hours at the time. Literally, you would be doing a workout. And you know, who wants that much attention in this day and age? You know, I take these things lightly, but you know, wearing a full gold or platinum watch with a full bracelet on your wrist, at some point you're asking for attention and you might just get the wrong kind.
Actually, now that you mentioned it, I actually I don't know, perhaps I was misreading into it, I guess. I don't know, but long story short, I had somebody eyeing up the bluesy a little bit more than what I cared for. And actually one of me mates pointed it out. Long story short here, I went up and got the drinks at the bar. And
Yeah.
you know, you got the bar lighting, whatnot, and there was a gentleman that was standing right there waiting for his drinks. And as I reached to get my drinks, those bar lights hit off the bluesy just right, so it just popped and flared. And I thought nothing of it. I grabbed the drinks, I sit down, and we're just me and my mate, we're actually just drinking. and having a little bit of dinner actually. And he's like, dude, he's like, that guy has not stopped staring at you for like the last 4 minutes now, roughly.
Mm.
And I said, yeah, I noticed that too. And he actually walked from the bar and sat like pretty much right
Mm.
next to us. There was a tabletop bar there, essentially like right next to our booth. And he sat there and he was just like nursing this glass of milk, essentially. What I can only assume was milk. I don't know. It was white in substance. I don't think it was alcohol. And he just kind of kept glancing over and glancing over it. So I'm like, at this point, I'm just like, well, this is fucking weird. So I get the waiter and we get the bill and we walk out. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he was planning something there or what. But yeah, that's like the second time now I've had my
You,
watches
you know,
noticed.
we had a similar conversation before, and you and I had this freak theory that two-tone watches somehow, maybe due to the contrast that you have by the juxtaposition of precious metal and steel, they seem to catch the light in certain ways that a gold watch on a leather strap, for example, might not.
Right.
That I feel like that can fly under the radar in a way that a two-tone Rolex on its full bracelet just can't escape. And
Well,
same
even
thing
look
with
at the Yachtmaster. Look at the Yachtmaster on Oyster Flex. It doesn't really, it doesn't flare up, especially when you got that ceramic bezel on there, the black ceramic bezel. I mean, you would hardly. I don't think anybody would even take a guess that it's white gold. It'd just be stainless steel.
right. I mean, especially the white gold version. Absolutely. And same thing even goes for a lot of modern Rolex, right? With the whole polished center links disaster, which I really don't like. But
Mm.
anyway, so there's a certain sense that on the full bracelet, there's something about the two-tone watches, especially, that it catches perhaps too much attention. Sometimes you want that, you are asking for it. I mean, there's a reason you chose this watch. Bluesy is one of the most iconic Rolexes, and it's a beautiful, beautiful piece. So you do want to, relish. You do want to thrive under that kind of attention, but it's not. It's really not an everyday wearer for most people, right?
Well,
Because they
I
can
mean, yeah,
feel
I
it.
mean, I would totally agree. I've been kind of using it as a daily beater, but but that's just me because I'm completely fucking insane. But shit, everybody knew that already.
Right. So, yeah, would you would you consider something like Chopard on a cheap and nasty leather strap?
Honestly, I've never even looked at Chopard. I've always kind of followed the general mass, and always thought Chopard was a girl's watch, and shouldn't be seen on men's wrists.
And that's why you went out of your way to get a Cartier, right?
I mean, Cartier is a very different story. Cartier was the very first wristwatch worn by a man. So I think that pretty much ends the argument right there. But no, in all serious, Chopard, I guess I never really looked into him a whole lot. I know what is that, the Eagle? Is it really called like the Eagle? I have no clue what the official term is. I think what
Alpine
that's like
Eagle.
their best heater. Yeah, yeah. I know
Alpine.
Jennifer Aniston. I think she used to be a brand ambassador at one point in time. But I know she had an Alpine Eagle in solid yellow gold, if I remember correctly. And look, I think the dials on them look really great. I think they have a maroon one, don't they? I suppose it kind of reminds me of a baboon's butthole now, but now that I think about it, but um, I still think they do very interesting work. I'll give them that. Would I ever wear one? Probably not. I just don't see the investment value there. There's not enough. There's not a big enough market for them. I'd
There's no
probably take a
there's
Gerard
no
Perregaux over a
investment value.
Chopard.
There's no investment value at all. That's for sure. You're right about that. You're right about that. And I think that's also partly why the average person doesn't go for Chopard, because it doesn't, like you said, it is just like Piaget. It's largely a name that's associated with jewelry, and in a way like Cartier too. But Cartier is crème de la crème. So Cartier is the jewelry brand that immediately comes to mind for women and men. And like you said, it has a legacy. It has a standing legacy as a watchmaker from the early years of the 20th century. They have an established place when it comes to wristwatches. They have done a lot of interesting horological work, and combined it with their own house style design elements since mid 90s. So they have a lot of the ingredients that simply makes a more appealing meal. Whereas, when it comes to Chopard and Piaget, they produce some amazing watches that do integrate not only great design, but very exciting horology, and sometimes even offer it at accessible price points. But that that's not a watch you buy at retail to begin with. And that's a watch you buy to keep, certainly not to flip, and certainly not to, even move a few years down the line. It's something that you buy as a keepsake, more or less. And that's not attractive to every single watch collector.
Right, right.
Oh, WU, I think you joined just a little too late. I was gushing over the Alpine Eagle before Big Meech came in. My only thing about the Alpine Eagle is that it falls short for me in terms of what I expect from Chopard, since they have LUC, since they have that beautiful micro rotor movement. If they Honestly, if the Alpine Eagle was a little more expensive, but had that caliber 99, caliber 96 base, um, I think I would have gone for it. It was one of the options that I was considering when I was getting my Reverso and the JMT Master 2. I could easily just gotten an Alpine Eagle and saved myself a little bit of money. But it was just, with all the design that I loved and with the way it wore on the wrist, I just felt a little let down knowing how much more they could have done just for a few $1,000s more. That's why I love the flying tourbillon, but I'm not spending six figures on a single watch anytime soon. So that's as much as I can say about that. But I do have a lot of love for Chopard, and even for the Alpine Eagle as it is. It's not an incredibly inspiring or original design. It has a lot of the elements that it borrows from here and there, and there's only so much you can do before people bash your efforts completely when it comes to the integrated bracelet luxury sports watch genre. You see the kind of flack that a lot of Piaget Polo models get. But yeah, I think the dial is stunning in every single example, and I'm still waiting for that model that would be priced, let's say, somewhere between $15,000 to $20,000, and would have the caliber 96. It doesn't have to be Geneva seal, but the micro rotor movement, which would give the watch a little more of that sleekness that I associate with the Chopard look, and you can really benefit from that as well when it comes to that particular design. That's why a lot of people loved and preferred 5712 to 5711 in the previous generation, right? That micro rotor movement has a lot of charm, complicated or not. So we can't make a Chopard fan out of you, it seems, Mitch.
No, like I said, most likely I would buy a cheap and nasty Gerard Perigal before a Chopard.
Oh, okay. I like some vintage GP, or neo vintage even, but not interested in the Laureato or any of the more recent pieces.
I'm not either, but I see, as Archie would say, Federico is fucking desperate to get rid of them shitters. I think last I checked, he had like 4 or 5 of them on his inventory list, and he cannot get rid of those fuckers to save himself.
To his credit, Federico always himself had Laureato in his collection, even before this whole Nautilus and Royal Oak craze took another level altogether. So I'll give him that. He's not trying to push on other people what he himself wouldn't buy or wouldn't wear, which is a good principle, even when you are just in business, right? I don't think there's anything wrong as long as you have some, good business practices, a good ethical backbone. I don't think there's anything wrong with making money, but
No, I mean I don't disagree, but I guess it's been a while, but I think one of his YouTube videos not too long ago, he tried really sneaking in that Gerard Perregaux and hyping it up. It was something along the lines of like the top 5 most underrated watches, and like it was like coming at number 5. I gotta go with Gerard Perregaux. Not just because I sell them, but it's like okay, yeah, whatever, Federico. You're neck deep into those fuckers. All right, just admit it.
I don't know, man. I kind of do you know the comedian Stavros Halkias?
No, I'm not really big into.
No?
I don't know.
He-
Maybe I do, but I'm not really big into the comedic world, I guess.
Anyway, I appreciate these guys in general. I feel like Federico has some substance. I will just stay with that. Yes, Evan, I do smoke in the house because I don't give a damn.
Yeah, because
I
he's
don't live
moving.
with.
He
Well,
doesn't have to give a shit
that
anymore.
too, but I also I don't I live on my own, so I don't have anyone
Yeah,
who's
but I
gonna
don't.
come
I try
come
not
and
to smoke
lecture
in the
me.
house. I mean that to me that kind of drives me nuts.
Oh, St. Peter says for Stavi baby. Yes, the first one of the first male nudist models on Instagram. Thank you, St. Peter, for recognizing Stavros Halkias. That's great. Thank you for the super chat, $2. Yeah, so let me get back to some of these watches, Meech, if you don't mind.
By all means.
Where is it? So there we go. This is Evan. Please do explain, why do you think I didn't strike you as a smoker? Because I give the impression that I live a healthy lifestyle. I don't know. I've always smoked in some shape or form, honestly. I've given up on cigarettes about a decade ago, but before that, I used to smoke heavily. Like I was a chain smoker. Man, this is just a thing of beauty. Um, Even without figuring in the tourbillon, I think that guilloche work on the dial. Evan says you give the impression that you're intelligent. The impression, yeah, the emphasis being on impression. I'm actually just a dumb fuck as the rest of the punters. I'm not intelligent at all.
There you go. There
I,
you have it. Somebody clip it. Somebody clip it. It's on record now.
no, I mean it's good to be self-aware. I was never under the illusion that I was intelligent. Just because I'm more intelligent than the average watch YouTuber, I don't let that get into my head because the bar is really low.
I was about to say, yeah, to be fair, the bar is pretty fucking low to be smart around this community.
Evan, okay, how about this? Kids, don't smoke. It's bad for your health. Give up on all the easy pleasures of life, um, because it bothers other people too much. So there we go. This was the wrist roll of the flying twin tourbillon in the pink gold version. You see how incredibly thin it is, less than 8 millimeters. It's really impressive how they fit in a tourbillon like that. Of course, not having an ostentatious cage rather helps that. But then again, building a flying tourbillon is horologically more difficult and more impressive. So this is a very fascinating piece. Of course, it's in six figures, but that's the kind of price point when you have a double Geneva sealed flying tourbillon watch by a decent manufacturer that's vertically integrated, that has this sort of hand finished quality on the dial for every single piece of the caliber. So it is what it is, and it was very impressive. What I wanted to focus on after this is of course Ferdinand Berthoud, and I want to start with perhaps the main story. I said a few things about the president, Karl Friedrich Schäufele, at the beginning of this live stream. He's really someone who doesn't spare any expense, and really when it comes to his commitment to horology, he's not much different than what we try to represent, right, Mitch? It's not it's not about the money. It's my passion. So it's Schäufele is exactly that kind of person. The story of the brand as a modern, or in its modern incarnation, is actually quite enchanting in and of itself. Schäufele is, of course, a watch collector, and he was assembling, actually accumulating, I should say, a number of Ferdinand Berthoud's creations from the 18th century, pocket watches, but especially the marine chronometers. Ferdinand Berthoud was building these precise marine chronometers for the French Royal Navy at the time. And as you know, those were the most important piece of equipment in the 18th century in a ship, because literally, if you are not precise with your timekeeper on board, you can't navigate, period, right? We are not talking about the modern time or the contemporary time where you have all sorts of precise technological devices on board that help you navigate. Your chronometer was it. Now, when a few years back, apparently, when Schäufele heard that someone actually had the name rights to Berthoud, and they were planning to revive it just as a simple watch company building, accessible watches, he had to put a stop to it, basically. He couldn't let that name go to waste, so he didn't spare any expenses in acquiring the rights to the name. Established Ferdinand Berthoud, established it as a manufacturer in Fleurier, where he already built this ecosystem for Chopard, where they have now been based for quarter a century, where they have their own foundry. I learned that finally. The whole ethical gold shtick is precisely because they melt their own, or smelt, I should say, their own gold at their manufacture. So they have a completely integrated facility in Fleurier for Chopard already, to which they wanted to integrate Ferdinand Berthoud as a chronometrically precise, high horological, independent company that more or less makes these artistic, contemporary recreations of Ferdinand Berthoud's visions in the form of wristwatches. And here you see basically the whole 3 chapters of Ferdinand Berthoud's story. They have been revitalized. They have been revived for almost 7 years now. This was the octagonal shape watch is their first. This one with the pale yellow gold movement that is exposed, that's chapter 3. That's their most recent model. And the one on the other end of the tray, where I had focused earlier, is the second chapter, or second generation, which is their deadbeat seconds watch. And all of these watches integrate in one way or another some incredible aspect of horological machinery that really leaves you in awe. This is chapter 2 on the wrist. It's quite a unit, 44 millimeter piece, a stepped enamel dial that is curved on the chapter ring. Must have been quite a challenge to build that, stabilize that, and bake that. The paint on it is also enameled, apparently. The deadbeat seconds come from the remontoir d'égalité that the watch also has. Let's take a peek at the movement, if I can find it quickly. Because it's also built in a way where you only really see, or where you only get to focus on the most essential parts of that caliber, which is, of course, the remontoir, the mainspring barrel, and of course hairspring. I mean, it's really amazing. It's it has the remontoir, it has the fusée and chain mechanism, right? This is the reverse fusée cone. This is the mainspring. You can see at least an aspect of the chain there, wrapped around, at least from this angle, mostly on the mainspring. And you can see that the mainspring itself also has a stop work in that Maltese cross kind of figure. So it has basically 3 absolutely unnecessary horological mechanisms integrated into it, because ultimately you can build chronometric watches at this point, COSC certified watches at this point, without the need of a fusée and chain mechanism, without the need of a remontoire, without the need of a stop work, without the need of a tourbillon, which both the first and third chapters of their production has. The Deadbeat second does not have a tourbillon, but in either case, it's really an unnecessary challenge they take to themselves, and they execute it in such beautiful and impressive fashion. And one further point that works in their favor is when these sorts of high horological manufacturers use a remontoire in their watches, use a fusée and chain mechanism in their watches. They don't usually go through the trouble of chronometrically certifying them as well. Berthoud went through that trouble, so they live up to their full brand name, which is Chronométrie Ferdinand Berthoud. All of their watches are COSC certified. So in addition to being these very exciting pieces of retrofuturistic design, they're also some of the best and most chronometrically precise mechanical watches that they have, that anyone has ever built. The straps are really nice. Yeah, I agree with that. I did not ask for the manufacturer, right? Especially because I didn't want to seem like I want to be doubting their story of vertical integration, because I'm pretty sure for the straps they have a manufacturer. It is someone else who provides them, just like Hermès provides the straps to Parmigiani Fleurier. I'm guessing it's probably Camille Fournet, who makes the watch, who makes the straps for them. Pardon me. It's these double-sided crocodile kind of thing they have going on, with large scales on the outside, large square scales on the outside, smaller scales on the lining of the strap, which again is very elegant. I'm trying my best to move away from leather in general, but I haven't been able to give it up yet, which is really a shame for me. But that's my personal dilemma and my very special neuroses. So you don't have to deal with that. Mike, David, nice to see you, man. Thanks for being here. Yeah, I really do love the FB ones they have, the octagonal shaped pieces, which have this porthole elements on 4 different ends of the scale, where you can peek at the movement, through the flanks, through the sides of the case. But yeah, those two FB1s were quite a delight, especially the one in white gold. I found incredible. If only it weren't $250,000, I'm sure I would consider it very seriously. But hey,
just break out the credit card, Lord. Just a little bit of consumer debt at 17% interest rate. No.
Well, look, for the same reasons that I'm not entering a mortgage at this time and day, I wouldn't, even on that kind of situation, I just wouldn't make that sort of investment on something that is ultimately a luxury to me. For myself, I consider owning property in the US a luxury, and I haven't really even sat down and seriously taken a look at the market where I live, because I feel like it's not worth it, especially when I don't know where I will be over the next years and decades. But for a watch, it even seems more vain, and even for a single childless man like me. I mean, it's just too much. This is the chapter 3, by the way. This is their new FB3, which is slightly more accessible than FB2, which was the deadbeat seconds, remontoire, fusée and chain piece that we have just seen with the enamel dial. Also, from the very first watch they have produced, which likewise won the best chronometer award. Well, sorry, it was actually chapter 2 that won the best chronometer award. Chapter 1, their very first model, that octagonal shape, had won the Aiguille d'Or, which was in 2016, which is, of course, the award for best in show in GPHG, in the Grand Prix d'Horlogerie in Geneva. Quite impressive, really, to get that kind of award with your very first release, and to repeat it, to repeat winning a best chronometer award the next year with your next watch. It's quite impressive, really. A lot of interesting stuff that comes out of Fleurier these days. As you know, I'm also a big fan of Parmigiani, even though Meech pokes a lot of fun at me, even because of the name of the brand. But I'm also a huge fan of Chopard and Berthoud. And this piece especially, I really love, even as an aesthetic object. All the contrast between the pink gold case and that dial, the domed sapphire crystal. And finally, I think what I really love about this is this porthole at 9 o'clock on the left flank of the case, which one fits with the entire nautical theme, right? After all, they have a heavy emphasis on Ferdinand Berthoud's legacy as the master chronometrist for the French Royal Navy. But it's also a great way for them to aesthetically present the exciting things that are going on in that case. And here you can see the hairspring basically either levitating freely on air, if you want to imagine it like that, but perhaps like a beating heart of what is otherwise very robust and contemporary horological machine.
Funny enough, Lord, I mean, I do have mixed feelings on Parmigiani. I actually wouldn't mind
Tell
getting
me.
one. But at the same time, I remember my VIP experience with Parmigiani, and then I just say, fuck them. I'd rather spend the money on a Tudor.
Well, I mean, it's a different price segment, isn't it? Even on the secondary market. I mean, between
They're fairly
Tudor,
affordable, honestly. Parmigianis are fairly affordable. They don't hold value very well, honestly.
right? I mean, they're affordable for what they are, and especially for the older lineup, you have a lot of great pieces that our friend Bezels just got a beautiful Tonda 1950 dress watch at less than $5,000. Fats. Thank you, man. Thank you. Um, and their new lineup, again, for what it is, like when you look at the chronographs, for example, right? The Tonda GP, I think they call it.
Yeah, they're great, phenomenal. I've held them in hand.
Dude, I mean, look, you have a great column wheel chronograph and an annual calendar wrapped into one. They're great on the full bracelet, but they also have versions of it that are on a rubber strap, which looks really luxurious to me, and which also feels very luxurious. Has that beautiful vanilla flavor that these high horological rubber bands usually do, as you have experienced it yourself. Um, and for what they are, even at the MSRP, they're pretty decent, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think their entry level is like 20 grand, 15 grand. I'm somewhere in that wheelhouse, and it seems a little bit, I don't know, out of touch to say, but that's not a whole lot when you consider what you're getting, like you said. But at the same time, I don't know. I think that sales rep kind of ruined the brand for me. I just I can't get over. I don't know. I guess I can't get over the way we kind of left the conversation. I don't know. I
Right.
mean, I know that's extremely petty, but whatever. I guess.
Fats, thank you so much. Look, let's put it this way, right? So that we don't seem out of touch or delusional. Of course, forget about $20,000. $5,000 is a lot of money for a mechanical watch, period, right? For something that we don't really need in our
No, I
lives.
don't know about that, Lord. We can't let the Tudor fanboys think they actually belong at the table. You got
Well,
to gatekeep at some point.
I'm a Tudor fanboy in a way as well, since they are connected to Rolex. I could never tolerate a lot of disrespect for Tudor, within reasonable limits, of course. But yes, even $5,000 is a lot of money for a watch. But let's put it this way: in a market where even today, as we are heading into a recession, as the entire secondary market completely tanked over the last months, people are still paying a solid $30,000 for a stainless steel Daytona on the secondary market.
That's
Um,
crazy.
when you look at their um, chronograph here with the big dates, annual calendar that expresses the month right here within the subdial for the seconds, the guilloche work on the center of the dial, the integration of the bracelet, which again, is a touch that the Daytona does not have, never really aspired to have, but you have something different going on here. It's not just another Panda chronograph, right? You have an extremely balanced design that follows a lot of the traditional aesthetic codes, but adds something new to it. Like the pushers, for example, look very substantial, feel very substantial, um, have this sort of contemporary feel that goes with the rest of the watch. It does live up to that GT slash GP name. It does look like a racing instrument in a way, right? Kind of has that flavor of a dashboard from a luxury sports car. Has the big dates at 12 o'clock, which is something that I used to adore about the earlier generation of the Vacheron Constantin overseas chronographs. Um, so there's a lot to love about this piece. It is an integrated bracelet sports watch. It is a Panda dial chronograph. It is, a high horology piece. It's also, a great sports watch. You can wear it, on the full bracelet. You can get it on the rubber strap. They do have versions of it that that
I
have
would get it
different.
on the rubber, 100%, but the rubber is just too flimsy. The head is just way too heavy, and the rubber strap is just cheap and nasty.
Okay. Well, the I guess that would be even more problematic in a way with the precious metal versions, if that's your experience for the steel. Was that your experience for the steel on the rubber?
No, actually, so what? A lot what she had. I think I don't know. She might have had one steel, but I know what. A lot of what she had was all the precious metals.
Mm.
But yeah, no, you could definitely feel like I don't know. You could feel them flop around like a limp dick, essentially, in your hands. And I just think, honestly, yeah. I mean, I guess you could call it a critique. I honestly think Parmigiani would actually benefit of throwing a chunk of steel in their rubber straps. I think it would help balance out the weight
They
exponentially.
Well, they have. I think, that's the thing. You were misinformed actually in that. That's what disappointed me. I know you were very nice in giving us all these details, but that sales rep actually told you that we don't use rubber straps on our steel versions, but if you go to their website, they have a number of different models of their steel chronographs on the rubber band, like this limited edition, by the way, which is actually my favorite. I love the orange accents against this, again, black dial that has the radial guilloche for the minutes track, that has those, pyramid kind of decoration for the center dial. And again, radial work for the chronograph registers. It has the big dates, the month, so adds up to an annual calendar. And yeah, I mean, there is. They also have the panda on the uh, rubber strap in steel as well. Those pieces are right under 20K. The one on the full bracelet is 20 and a half, 20,500. And yeah, you also have a few other versions of it. I think they may have sold out of the one that had the burgundy rubber strap with the burgundy
It's a
chronograph
beautiful
registers.
combination. Beautiful
Yeah,
combination. I don't know if I have that on my Instagram or not. I have no clue. And if I do, it's not a very good. It's not a very flattering photo, but in person, it's very beautiful to have in hand.
let me see if I can find an example of it on um, our favorite Chrono 24. Yeah, I do actually, and it's listed right under 20K as well by an Italian. And again, their photo is not particularly flattering either. But there we are. They have this. They have the panda. They have they have it in precious metal as well, in pink gold. I think they have a. I want to say they don't have anything in white gold in this range, but certainly in pink gold they have the panda dial. They used to have the burgundy chronograph registers version as well. I don't know if they sold out or something. They have it on the full bracelet for precious metal as well. Look, again, it's not exactly a value proposition overall, since, as we mentioned, we are still talking about $20,000 for the steel, and
You'd buy
$40,000.
this pre-owned. There's no way, unless
Of
you're
course,
getting it steeply discounted. There's no way you'd buy this new.
of course, even with the deep discount. I mean, look, on the rubber bracelet, the pink gold is 45 when all is said and done, basically, at list. So obviously you are looking for some sort of a deal there. But when you look at the steel models, even at retail, if you compare it to what is the gold standard in sports chronographs in today's market, that's still the Rolex Daytona. You have something which, in fact, saves you money um, on the secondary market, right? You can do a lot with the change you get from getting a Tonda GT chronograph in steel on rubber, as opposed to paying at least $30,000 for a stainless steel Rolex Daytona on the secondary market.
Doesn't Bondage at some point didn't he have? I don't know if he had a chrono, but didn't he have a Parmigiani Lufiare? Um, I think he flipped out of it, didn't he? Actually, come to think of it.
I don't know, actually. Um, I don't know. I I don't know his collection in and out. He has some very nice pieces, including his Zeitwerk, which must be my favorite.
My favorite's that Maruch cross.
I mean, it's fine. Moritz Grossman is a great manufacturer, but I feel, at that price point, there's just so much that it feels like a very, very interesting move to go for Grossman over so many other options. I would rather go for something like Habring or Benzinger than Moritz Grossman, but it is what it is. Oh, by the way, speaking of great deals to be had at Parmigiani, in addition to oh yeah, I'm gonna come back to this in a moment. But in addition to their older Tonda 1950s, which used to sell for basically peanuts on the secondary markets, you can still find them very easily for under 6K. This particular example is priced a little wishfully by the dealer, I have to say. It has that Chrono 24 tax. These have also versions with the black dial, iterations with the diamonds on the bezel, which you may or may not like. They also just sold the watch outlet, the website just sold the perpetual calendar from the older generation for less than 20,000, which, I mean, it's just an incredible deal. This is another interesting value proposition. Again, if you want that kind of dress watch, full set, pink gold with these galvanized blue meteorite dial. I mean, this is incredible, and it has that Michel Parmigiani micro rotor movement in it, which more or less is what we were talking about with LUC Chopard and their Caliber 96, which was, you won't be surprised to find out, designed by Michel Parmigiani himself. Yeah, Parmigiani offers a lot of value on the secondary market because, Mitch, at the end of the day, what you said about the brand, if you buy it at retail price before you drive out of the authorized dealer, you're losing 40%. That also means that on the secondary market, as an enthusiast, as a collector, you have better deals, right? It's a great brand to get on the secondary market. You can get basically unworn pieces at 30, 40, 50% off, and sometimes more. Again, Bezos can speak to this. I think he basically got his at 70% off, probably. and they actually wrote the warranty card to his name. So it was an untouched piece, not only unworn, stickered, all this gray market dealer bullshit. It was a genuine new old stock piece that they were dying to get rid of.
But Lord, the only downside of buying a Parmigiani pre-owned is you don't get the jar of sauce. You don't get the jar of sauce when you buy like you would with the brand new. When they give you a jar of ragu when you buy a Parmigiani Duffiare, maybe even throw a breadstick or two when you buy them new. But when you buy them pre-owned, you lose out. You lose out.
No, no extra garlic knots, no garlic
No, no,
bread
absolutely
served
not.
to the table. Man, you're vicious, man.
I don't know, man. Maybe it's the bluesy. Maybe it's the power of the bluesy. But yeah,
How
certainly,
about this?
certainly no Chef Boyardee. I mean, maybe you're lucky. Maybe they give you a Chef Boyardee can of ravioli when you buy pre-owned. But
How
certainly not
about
the same.
how about this? By wearing a watch like Parmigiani on your wrist, are you giving out the message that you are all sauce and that you just don't give a fuck about what other people think? That you are that kind of guy.
Or you have inspiring aspirations to be an Italian chef who just didn't quite make it. Didn't quite make it. Yeah.
Ooh, that's an interesting. Okay, let me see. Um, was that actually a scratch on the movement? Wow. I hope not, because that's.
It actually looks like a fracture. If anything, it looks like it's cracked.
I don't think a bridge plate can crack like that, but it does certainly look like a scratch. And for a watch that's presented as new, that's a little worrying. But hey, I don't know. I don't think maybe someone opened it and scratched it. I mean, because at the end of the day, um, it doesn't make sense to me for it to have. I think it must be the sticker or something. I don't want to believe it because the work is pretty decent for a watch at this price point otherwise, right? The anglage is not the best I've ever seen, but I'm not sure if they would look. I mean, here it is, right? It's not gonna be this many faults on a watch like that. And if it were suspiciously cheap, I would say yes, but you can find like a number of different um, listings of the same watch from different parts of the world. That's not a suspiciously cheap version. So you can just go to the next one, which has white gold with the galvanized black meteorite dial, white gold with the galvanized blue, and then two more examples right around that point of the pink gold with the galvanized blue meteorite, which I think is a very unique touch. I mean, I know Rolex uses a lot of meteorite. I know a lot of other high horological brands use meteorite dials for watches that have some sort of complication. It somehow feels even more fitting to use it on a watch that's basically a two-hander, not even a three-hander. So you have all this beautiful um, slice of meteorite that's uninterrupted and undisrupted, except for the subdial for the seconds at 6 o'clock, and you get the whole pattern for yourself, which is great. I mean, I think the closest you have to that is the um, Marcella Time Special GMT Master 2. white gold meteorite dial.
Don't forget about the Platona Lord.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's it. Honestly, for many collectors of the contemporary Rolex, Marcelo has a three piece that puts many collections to shame. I mean, he has the older version of the white gold Submariner, the so-called Smurf, blue bezel, blue dial. He has the Meteorite GMT Master 2 with, and then he now has the Platinum Daytona, and not just the platinum, a Platinum Daytona, the Platinum Daytona with the baguette diamonds on the dial, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
So yeah, St. Peter there. The dials they have with the hand guilloche work are also incredible. That's another great independent manufacturer that gives you an access into high horology before you step onto mid to high five figures or even six figures, right? You can Schwarz Etienne, Sartor Rebia, Parmigiani Fleurier, LUC Chopard. Those are all Habring 2. Those are all great entry points into high horology at prices that won't break the bank. That would still put you probably in trouble with your significant other. So it passes the Archie luxury test. That it's gotta hurt. It's gotta hurt at some level, but it doesn't have to completely break the bank. And that's the story of high horology on a budget. You have, thankfully, we are at some point really spoiled for choice at this segment. If you have about $15,000 to spare on a watch, which is a lot of money, don't take me wrong. You have a lot of interesting independent brands, a lot of unusual suspects, and you have to really thank independent watchmaking and the kind of ventures they have taken, the kind of risks they have taken, and the kind of enterprise of cooperation and collaboration they have been building up for the last couple of decades. I mean, some great and very exciting brands coming up from Switzerland and Germany and beyond. Hey, Basil, we were talking actually about your Tonda 1950, which is a great watch and was an amazing find for you. The logo is, well, I mean, by logo you mean their name. So you're also complaining about Parmigiani as the. I mean, look, it's.
I think they should run with it though. Put like a little chef's hat, like at 12 o'clock. Maybe like maybe like a wooden ladle, like right underneath the chef's hat. I mean, fuck it, just run with it. Run with it.
Oh man. Um. Hey, I mean, look, I think of it both ways. It depends on what side of the bed I get up from. Some days I feel like, look, man, if it's your, even if it's your name, why not choose something different? Recep Recepi talks about this all the time, right? When he was coming up as a young independent watchmaker, when he was just 24, 25 years old, he basically came up with the name Akrivia, which evokes this idea of precision, rather than using his own name. And in his case, it was a little bit of restraint and humility on the one hand, but also a kind of hesitation that held him back, because he thought that he wouldn't be recognized immediately. Michel Parmigiani had already built a name for himself when he established his independent brand, and got the financial backing of the Sandoz family foundation as well, as well as, of course, his collaboration with Chopard. That was, you know, that made him basically part of the furniture, so to speak, in Fleurier. So some days I feel like, hey, the guy earned it. He's a master watchmaker. When he establishes an independent firm, just as Daniel Roth, just as F.P. Jean, he has the right to put his own name on his watches. On the other hand, yeah, I mean, especially in combination with Fleurier, it just feels like, like this is it. Look, I'll put it in two emojis, man. This, and then I can't find it. But yeah, chef's hat at 12 o'clock. Is that what you want from PF?
Yeah, I know. I think it makes sense. Maybe just see if you can just buy the rights. Buy the rights from Chef Boyardee. Just replace the oval with the Chef Boyardee logo right up there. I think it'd be a nice touch.
Well, I mean, to their credit, more recently, they have just started going by the initials, going by the abbreviation PF, which I understand.
Piff. Yeah, it's not that much. It's not much better, honestly. But hey, I mean, at least I'll give Parmigiani this. At least they're not associated with the cheap and nasty shitter brand like Grand Seiko, and ultimately where like Grand Seiko's completely fucked. And they'll never gain respect unless they absolutely demolish, which I think they're actually doing, demolishing the cheaper brand and eventually going to fold in Seiko into Grand Seiko and just make it Seiko at that point.
I mean, look, for example, in their new Tonda PF, they have the logo at 12 o'clock PF, which I think is quite elegant actually within that ellipse. And again, I like the fact that it saves up a little more of that real estate, because they do have just gorgeous decoration on their dials for the most part. A beautiful and very unique pattern on this Tonda PF model as well. And I know our lovely El Profesor wants to take them to task for this, but they also have a platinum bezel with the fluting, which Rolex just introduced into their day date, for example, this year, right? Whereas PF, for the last 2 years, for their stainless steel integrated bracelets, sports chic watch, they had a platinum bezel with this coin edge fluting, and it's a beautiful watch. I think it's beautiful in time and date. It's also quite gorgeous in that travel time configuration, which you have seen in person, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Meech, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, look, I mean, the way they abbreviated the index markers on this one, got rid of the date opening, used this very discreet and naturally placed pusher for the jump hour, and the rose gold accents for both the home time and the rattrapante reset button that they have integrated to the crown there. So essentially, you can basically jump the silver hour hand with this independent pusher at 8 o'clock. And when you come back home, you can reunite those two hands with a single push on this additional piece in pink gold at the crown. I think it's a brilliant piece of design, and I think you can see how discreet it is from this photograph that I've seen on the. Actually, this is the seller that Bezos got his watch from. Mamba is in the audience, by the way. Mamba, don't think I forgot you. I saw you. Sorry, I didn't say hi. So this is when they're coupled. You can see, Meech. You
Oh,
can see the.
what are we supposed to be looking at?
We're looking at the pink gold hand. You can see the slight
No,
reflection
no,
on the dial, right?
you don't have it on the screen. No,
No? All
no.
right, let's see.
There you go.
All right, you can see a slight reflection of it on the dial, but you can't make out the pink gold home time hour hand, right?
I don't know. I mean, Lord, I'm an old man, for God's sakes. You're making me stress my eyesight here. Yeah, I guess if you really do a deep dive, you can see it a little bit there. But man, is it faint?
Yes, you see, I mean, they have uh, not only the mechanism, but in terms of how well they finished everything and put this whole thing together. It's really what you would expect from a high horological manufacturer. It's They have done some great work in the um, last couple of decades, but especially the last few years. They have really started ascending. I think it is going to be interesting to see where they go from here. And once again, you have a stainless steel integrated bracelet watch that is sporty, that's beautifully designed, that's very originally decorated on the dial in a pattern that you won't see on another watch, that has that extra little bits of precious metal in that fluted platinum bezel, and also in the um, rattrapante hand for the travel time function. And as it happens, they actually did the micro rotor in this one, in the matching pink gold as well. So you have that interplay between the rhodium plated parts and the pink gold accents. On the face of the watch, but also through the sapphire case back as well. And here we are talking about, again, a price point that's basically right between the two. Yeah, 26,000. Which is, again, it's not an immense markup from from their stainless steel plain version of the Tonda PF.
Yeah, but when you think about that, though, that's actually pretty expensive for GMT, honestly, and stainless steel. Um, Especially when you can get like the Breitling Chronomat for under $5,000.
I mean, look, that has an. Don't get me started on $5,000 watches that basically have an ETA movement in them. I mean, you can get the Seiko GMT for less than $500. Why not?
I don't know. I don't know if I really want to buy another Grand Seiko, honestly.
It's not. I mean, it's not even Grand Seiko. It's
I mean, Seiko,
I'm
Grand
talking about
Seiko,
the
tomato,
Seiko GMT,
tomato.
right? But anyway, yes, it is. Again, none of these watches are cheap by any means, but when you have their standard model at 21,000, the 5K markup for the rattrapante complication, which is a different expression of the GMT, right? Love it or hate it. If you don't love it, it's not a consideration anyway. So why bother, worrying about the price difference? But I think this is actually a very interesting model. I think I would, if I were ever going for a Tonda watch, I would rather go for the GT. I would rather go for the chronograph, like steel on rubber. I think that's a very interesting take. That's something that combines a lot of desirable things about contemporary sports chronograph while offering still something unique. Whereas when it comes to the Tonda PF range, whether we are talking about the time and date version or the GMT version, um, to me, it's either too expensive for what they are. Again, with all the understanding that it is actually a great value for the kind of finishing and caliber that they provide. There's something missing, right?
Yeah,
The just like
26 grand for a GMT, and you don't even get a date complication, which is technically part of what a GMT should be. You should get a date complication with that, and you don't even get that with this.
I don't know. I think that's just rote memorization, isn't it? I mean, why? Because GMT Master has a date that you have to have a date for the GMT complication.
Nah, Tudor Pro's got a date on it. I mean, it just seems like you
No,
should
no,
have a date with the GMT in
I know,
general.
but that's because Rolex had designed it that way, right? What other reason? To me, in fact, for the GMT, you need it less because what is GMT? GMT in our time and day, it's a travel watch. When you're on vacation, do you really need to know what day it is and what the date is? No. Why do we need a date again?
I don't know. It really depends on who you are, I guess. To me, I
Does
feel
the
like
does the
a
Patek
date.
does the Patek World Time have a date?
No, it has month, doesn't it? It has months on it.
No.
Yeah, doesn't the World Time have months on it?
No.
Hmm.
Yeah, Patek's travel time watches have a pointer date, usually at 6 o'clock. But Patek World Time does not have a date traditionally.
No, I don't know. I guess it goes to show that I don't know the Paddock catalog that well. But then again, I haven't really looked at Paddocks that much lately.
No, I mean, look, we can't memorize everything, right? I don't hold it against you, but just to unsettle that assumption a little bit, GMT and travel time watches do not have to come with a date. For me, especially when you have a beautiful dial like this, I would rather have it undisturbed. But then again, I'm a 5513 Submariner no date kind of guy. I really had never a use for the date on my watch ever.
Yeah, no, I used to be the same way, Lord. I used to think I would never need a date complication, but obviously things are different now. And I don't know if it's someone who writes a lot of checks and signs a lot of paperwork, um, especially early spring, late fall now. The date complication is nice to have.
Yeah, JKM, because the whole idea of the quote unquote GMT or travel time watch is the necessity to track time in multiple time zones, right? At least home time and local time. And GMT Master 2, of course, with the independently working hour hand in combination with the rotational bezel, actually gives you the option for a third. Um, which again, I mean, I'm not against it, but for my aesthetic, on this watch with that beautiful guilloche decoration on the dial, I would rather have less on the dial than more. I'm just trying to say, people expect a date opening on a GMT watch's dial because Rolex said so. There's no rule. You know, people have made world time, people have made travel time watches that did not have a date window. Patek's first version of the travel time Calatrava, which was also a Louis Cotier design, did not have a date. Um, it's the more modern version of the travel time complication that tends to come with a date.
Shit, while we're on the topic, I guess if anyone would benefit from not having a date, it would be Tudor. Honestly, their GMTs are, I won't say they're tanking in the market, but god damn, there's a shit ton of them in the display case because they're way too thick. And if they took out the date, I feel like that would help immensely.
Yeah, JKM, I think we are just getting our lines crossed. Feel free to jump on the panel and explain your point. My reasoning is not off because we're not talking about something that's desperately complicated. We're talking about personal preferences. I'm saying you do not need to have a date on your travel watch, period. You just don't. Because essentially it's not a different watch than any other watch. There are wristwatches that don't have a date. There are wristwatches that have a date. There are travel time watches that give you AM, PM indicators for both home time and local time. That's very useful. I like that. Do I want to have that? I don't care because once I'm conscious enough to set two different time zones, I probably have an idea whether it's day or night in that other time zone that I'm tracking, whether that's my home or a place where I'm heading toward, or where my relative lives, or where my friend is visiting, so on and so forth. But again, if you feel like you need to correct me on something, feel free to jump on the panel. This is your platform as much as it is mine, and feel free to explain. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I think just in general, $20,000 to $25,000. When you get above $20,000, for me, it's really above 10. You start asking different kinds of questions, right? You really do start picking the watch apart in so many different ways, right? Everything becomes a problem in a way, right? Why
Well,
doesn't it
you
work?
want for a $20,000 watch, you at least want $13,000 worth of value. I mean, that's the way I kind of look at it, and so on and so forth. $60,000 watch, I want at least $55,000 worth of value. I mean, it's the numbers have to make sense at the end of the day, and if they
Mhm.
don't, then it just ruins the whole thing.
Yeah, but I mean, for whom and for what kind of purpose? I mean, I was just talking with Berthoud, watches that are $250,000, right? For me, even when I can appreciate them horologically, even when I can actually talk about them for hours if we were to dissect the fusée and chain mechanism and how a remontoir works and how they derive, deadbeat seconds from that. Even though I can appreciate it at that level, even if I were at that price segment, I can never imagine putting $250,000 down on a watch.
I would look at it as how much can I, if I need to flip it today, how much money can I get back? And if it's less than, I don't know, if it's less than half a mil, it's not, in my opinion, it's not worth buying.
I understand that. Well, in the case of Berthoud, for a lot of watches, people have to wait almost 2 years. So if you're actually sitting on one, you might be able to sell it even at a slight premium, not only at their list price, but at a slight premium. So that won't be a problem. But I would still have a problem putting down that much.
Well, right. Anybody would.
On a single
it's fucking insane, when you think about it in the grand picture. They're dropping that much money on a wristwatch.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But again, it all goes to show that people have different priorities, different expectations. When it comes to that level of boutique brands, that produce really at most 40, mostly a couple of dozen watches a year, people are really paying for the exclusivity as well, for the bragging rights, so to speak. All of this mythology you associate with the bluesy, multiply that by...
It's not mythology if it's fact, Lord. It's not mythology if it's fact.
Okay, all that factual experience that you associate with the bluesy, multiply that by 10. When someone steps into the right room with like a $250,000 high horological watch.
But it has to be the right watch, though, Lord. It has to. I mean, you could argue the same shit with the new Omega. What the fuck is it? The
Moonshine.
Yeah, whatever the fuck that. Yeah, that piece of fucking shit.
Come on.
Over like what is it? $500,000 Switzerland only is what the rumor is. And I don't know how many Omega is actually going to produce. Knowing Omega, they're gonna kill. They're gonna undermine their own idea, and they're gonna make, I don't know, maybe 25,000 for the world. Therefore, it makes it not even fucking special at that point. But I mean, like, is there kudos for walking into a room wearing something like that? I mean, do you get credibility, or people just look at you and say, "Man, you're fucking stupid for dropping that much money on just an Omega when you could have done it with a Lange or a Patek or Voutilainen." It makes more sense that way.
Well, let me put it this way. You were telling me an experience that you had with people in your community, when they realized you were wearing a Rolex, right?
Correct.
So chances are, depending on the context, we can already look ridiculous with the luxury wristwatches that we have, which are, again, more in the segment of, high 4 digits, maybe 5 digits, low 5 digits, creeping up there. We were just talking about 20, 25,000. In a way, depending on where we find ourselves and what kind of company we keep, we probably already look ridiculous, vain, irresponsible in certain ways, even though some of us are not responsible for anyone else. But that's another discussion altogether. So you have to be mindful of the context, right? You wouldn't wear that Speedmaster chrono chime on just any random occasion. You would probably wear it to impress your Omega fanboy friends, and for them, there's no such thing as Lange or Patek, much less.
I don't know, though. I mean, it's a tough sell. It's a tough sell. Because
I mean,
I was
of course,
watching the
it's a tough
Facebook.
sell. It's $500,000 for a watch.
Exactly. I was watching the
Whatever it
Facebook Omega
does.
group, and they were laughing at it. They were saying, like, "Who the hell is going to buy this?"
Well, I'm sure someone already has, but I think a couple of people already have. I know someone on Instagram. Again, I don't know this person in real life, but I know a person who bought the entire set of the Gem Set Speedmasters
Oh
already.
yeah, I remember seeing that. I remember seeing that. It was trending actually. It was been trending in my feed, anyways. Yeah, ridiculous, ridiculous.
Yeah, to me, again, I've said a couple of things about this before. On the one hand, precious metal Speedmasters, overly complicated Speedmasters, gem set Speedmasters, to me, to my understanding and to my admittedly limited understanding of what a Speedmaster ought to be, I think it's a contradiction in terms, right? To me, Speedmaster is the everyman's watch. It is supposed to be an everyday uh, wearable sports watch in stainless steel with the legacy of the ultimate tool watch, right? The watch that went to the moon, wow, astronaut watch. Whatever, story that goes with it, I respect it immensely. And for that reason, to me, all of this is cognitive dissonance. On the other hand, I know that ultimately these are genuinely limited editions, not in the Omega sense of limited editions where they make 2,000s of them, that these won't be accessible to most people. And ultimately, they serve two purposes. One, a publicity stunt, pure and simple, to draw attention to the brand name. And two, a way of flexing their horological muscles. Hey, we can do it too, and we will demonstrate it on our most iconic model, just like JLC was presenting all these impressive complications on the Reverso. What better canvas than our iconic Speedmaster to demonstrate our gem setting, to present our complications, which it turns out is not even their complication. It is actually a Blancpain caliber, it turns out, in the chrono chime models. And that's another mind fike altogether. So, yeah, I have a lot of bad things to say, but I am holding back because ultimately I know it's largely a publicity stunt. It's largely flexing at that level of the brand name.
I gotta be honest. I hope these fucking flop. I mean, I don't know. Perhaps I'm a little bit jaded in a way. I don't know. But if this is what Omega's been fucking around with for the past, I don't know, 4 to 5 months, while continuously to delay the Aquaterras and the 38 mils, and along with over half their catalog that they were supposed to release, to me, this is just kind of a waste of time and money. Like, you should have been fulfilling your orders rather than fucking around with this shit. Because Omega's pissing off a lot of people right now. And like Omega's people are starting to wonder, is Omega going to be the next Rolex where they're going to start manipulating their stock? Which I don't think so. I just think Omega got in over his head, but I don't know. Time will tell.
Uh, Look, I mean, I have made right before the Watches and Wonders, and right after their release of the whole range of Aquaterras and the new John Mayer Speedmaster and everything, I did make a video, which was one of my early videos, where I tried to think through very dispassionately and objectively through this question, right? What does it mean for Omega to release all these watches that in and of themselves may be quite beautiful, maybe quite appealing, may probably move a lot of units. What does it mean still for Omega to release these watches, where their brand identity for so long was basically shaped in antagonism to Rolex, in differentiating themselves from Rolex, in basically competing with them, while a lot of times offering better value, right? What does it mean for Omega to try something else, which seems a little too reminiscent, too close for comfort to Rolex? And I think I agree with you. I think it's not good for their brand image. I don't think it's good for their brand identity. But then, what do I know, right? We were just talking about how my IQ is basically about the room temperature, right? I'm just more intelligent than the average watch YouTuber. Otherwise, I'm just a punter. So what do I know? I don't know anything. But yeah, I have this 5 minutes video. I'll drop the link there. Yes, guys, please upvote, hit the like button. It helps immensely. If you if you subscribe, if you're just dropping by, if you are just stopping by, if you just stumbled upon this channel, please consider subscribing, because I'm here with Watch Talk every day, where I talk about a lot of the contemporary conversations in the world of horology, but also try to provide really the most diverse content in terms of live stream channels. We talk about anything from Seiko to these ultra high horological boutique brands, watches that you can get for a few $100, watches that you can get for almost $1 million as well. And we try to always learn, we try to always get knowledge on our side, so we can make more informed decisions when time comes to invest in a timepiece. So if you're interested in that, if you're interested in expanding this community, please consider subscribing, and also tell your friends, share the link to the channel, to your favorite content. I have a whole archive by now of videos that are 5 minutes long, 10 minutes long, 15 minutes long. So if it is on a topic that you were discussing with your friend, or you want to share with someone you love, that can be a great way of reaching out to them and helping me expand the community at the same time. Because for me, it doesn't end at 1,000 subscribers, which we have reached already a couple of weeks ago. Our next goal is 5K, and any help you can give me in reaching that I would be absolutely grateful. So hit the like button. That gives me a little bit of exposure. Share the link on other platforms, on other channels. Spread the word, and we'll keep growing together for the next year and beyond. Yeah, well, I mean, it's a little colder now since I opened the window, so it's even less than 79. Yeah. So what do you think, Meech? There was a moment where you lost your belief in me, I think, when you gave up on this platform.
No. I don't know. I mean, I think I don't know. I was talking to another guy, and said the older you get, the more you kind of widen your spectrum, And as you know, I'm a very elderly man. I just had the rails installed into my bathroom now when I get in and out of the shower. So I've definitely peaked at this moment. Yeah, no, I actually am starting to come around a little bit here. Um, on I guess you a little bit more dressier watches, although I don't really don't find myself in the occasions of such where I would need a dress watch. But and yeah, I am coming around to the vintage side a little bit. Funny enough, I was actually kind of reminiscing, and I was actually kind of trying to figure out what year that sub was, that submariner that I bought. And it had to have been before 2004, 2002, because it was a no holes case. Or excuse me, it was a holes case. And then I don't know. I've been toying with the idea of buying one, but right now they're just too damn fucking high. Still, they're like 10, 12 grand still. And I don't know if I really want to buy that. Then I go to the Explorer 2. Should I buy the Explorer 2? I don't know if I really want to. So I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of sitting in limbo right now, but no, I would actually kind of like to go to an independent at some point. I don't know. That's a lot of money to swing at something that's not going to have a good ROI right now. So
Yeah, I mean, you showed me a few pictures of that sub on this channel, um, and I love it. But like you said, I think the moment will come. If I were actually in the market for vintage, neo vintage Rolex, except for very very iconic and desirable models like a big crown submariner, like a very niche, like mil spec uh, watch that has genuine provenance, double red sea dweller, whatever. Unless you are talking about something like that, everything else would be much more accessible and much cheaper already in the first quarter
I
of
wouldn't mind buying that
2023.
sub though that I sent you on Instagram. I wouldn't mind that
Oh yeah.
honestly, but it's 15. It's the price of a fucking bluesy. And I don't even know if the website's legitimate or not, but I do like the matte black and blue combination. I think it is killer on that. And the bracelet didn't even look that bad on it, honestly.
Yeah, by the way, yes, of course, I'm still friends with Aussie Expat. I loved having him basically as my co-host night after night. I don't think he has that kind of time these days. If he comes back in that capacity, he's always welcome here. But he's simply always welcome here whenever he feels like he has time in his hands and wants to talk watches. Aussie Expat is a great supporter of this channel, great contributor, and his channel is still one of the only supported, one of the only featured channels on my feed, on my channel. So you know already the answer, but since you want to stir the pot, I want to give you a little bit of a lengthy treatment here. And Kobe Forever, I'm guessing this is still Mamba. Thank you for your support and thank you for reminding everyone to upvote. JB, I love you, my friend. I will get back to you on the question you asked, hopefully tomorrow. I really did not have any free time today, so I apologize, forgive me, but I will look into the question that you asked me. And Pauli has a lot of love for our Meech. Meech lives in a beautiful place. I love him. He's a good guy. I love his watches. And the fact that he just fucking uses his Rolex. And I talked to him on IG. He gets flack at times, but he is a real watch enthusiast and a true member of the community. I agree with that.
To be fair, I kind of walk myself into my own problems, but that's beside the point.
Yeah. I mean, you're not always presenting the best case for yourself. I agree with that as well. But I love you, Meech. Thanks for coming back, and thanks for supporting my vision for these cheap nasty and vicious pieces ranging from Seiko to vintage Rolex.
Yeah, no, I should be kind of regularly back nowadays with things kind of settling down. So I figured, yeah, it's maybe start making regular appearances around the horseshoe, so to speak. So yeah.
Very nice, very nice. And I know, again, since you are not ready to hang up your boots yet, maybe we'll get a little more from you for the watch community for some time to come.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. We'll see about an Explorer 2 here. We'll see. If not, I still would like to kind of get an Aquaterra, but I don't know. I heard rumor here. My
Tell me.
two rep was talking with her Rolex up here. In a nutshell, and she was kind of saying like, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure Tudor's supposed to release a new watch here come towards the end of November. So we'll see what happens there.
Honestly, Meech, I do appreciate the social media age. I even benefit from it financially at this point. So, as much as I appreciate the rolling release schedule, uh, I'm almost getting saturated by Tudor. They have just released way too many watches this year, and due credit
I
to
don't think
them.
they had to. I mean,
I
go on.
basically, yeah, just one more sentence. I actually did love basically every single watch they released this year. So don't take me wrong. The Ranger, even with the Pan 15 hour hand, um, Pelagos 39, the Black Bay Pro. I basically loved every release. Don't take me wrong, but I feel like, at some point the public will get exhausted from it, and I hope that doesn't happen.
Well, I was kind of discussing this with another person. I said I think Tudor actually. I don't think Tudor. I don't think we were supposed to see the Pelagos this year. I don't think we were. Um, but it's no. Yeah, Tudor released a lot of watches, no doubt. But it's no secret that over half the line that they released flopped pretty hard, actually. So you
You
had
think?
oh, I know so. I mean, look,
Okay.
I mean,
Tell me
the
more.
Diet Root Beer does not sell. It does not sell. It sits in the display cases. You can get them discounted now. The dealers don't want to be held, holding on to them. I see very few of them on the Facebook marketplaces being flipped, and when they are being flipped, they're under retail. Um,
As they should
the
be, by the way, anyways. But go
right.
on.
The Black Bay 36 line, pretty much had problems right out the starting gate when they tried to rip off Louis Vuitton's design, and then they got. I'm willing to bet Tudor actually got pretty much threatened with a lawsuit, and then after going back and forth, they dropped the design and then they re-released it. But look, the 36 is a great line. Don't get me wrong, along with the 39. But the steel and gold, nobody's buying that. When they revamped it, nobody's buying it. I guarantee you nobody's buying it. Or if they do, they probably sell one for every, I don't know, 100 Black Bays that they sell. It's not a desirable watch. It's not what Tudor is. It's not what Tudor is about.
But
And
by the way, can you before we move on to the next thing, I wanna I want you to elaborate a little bit for the audience what you mean with the Black Bay 36 and Louis Vuitton mix up.
so Tudor actually, I don't know, Tudor's done a pretty good job of washing it away from the history books here. But when they first released, I believe it was going to be exclusively for the women's line only. But it was pretty much like the Louis Vuitton logo on the dial. So it was going to be for the 31, the 34. I don't know if Tudor does the 34, and it was going to be for the 36, and the 36 had diamonds around it. And when Tudor first released it to the public, people were pretty interested in it, as was I. And I believe it was going to come in white dial and chocolate or black. I can't remember. And then when all the watches released, people were ecstatic. Pretty much the Pro was the poster child. Everyone was focused on the Pro, and this 31, 36 suddenly got swept underneath the rug, and then people started noticing, like, wait, was that just an illusion? Were we dreaming of that? And Tudor reps were very quiet about this. Like, they would not mention anything about it. And so I remember asking Tudor, and I remember seeing it actually in the Facebook group. Somebody had mentioned it too. He's like, "Was I just imagining this, or what happened to it?" And yeah, it's like in yellow gold there. Somebody kind of stated that, oh yeah, Tudor is being currently sued right now from Louis Vuitton for ripping off their design. And I asked my Tudor rep, I said, "Whatever happened to this?" And she said, "What do you mean?" And she played dumb for like the first 2 minutes. And I said, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure these existed at one point, or they're supposed to, right?" And she said, "No, I don't think so." And I said, and I finally pulled up the screenshot because somebody had to actually take a screenshot of the design. I said, "Yeah, like Tudor was supposed to release these." She's like, "Oh yeah, those are currently not in production. We don't have them." I said, "Tudor's been sued, right?" And she said, "Look, all we can say is we're not selling them. They're because she said because initially everyone was thinking these were Japan only releases, and she said, nope, Japan's not getting them. Nobody's selling them right now. It's just a production error." And I said, "Okay." I said, off the record, I said, "Is Louis Vuitton filing a lawsuit against Tudor?" She said, "Look, Louis Vuitton obviously is a very successful brand, exclusive brand, and they just didn't like the idea that Tudor was just suddenly stepping on their toes." So in a nutshell, yes, I believe, yeah, Tudor was being sued at one point, and these just kind of flopped pretty bad. Now
and
they have released,
and
but
obviously, by
obviously
the
with the
way, not I mean nowadays, of course, not only under the Louis Vuitton brand, but through LVMH, they ha- they're trying to compete in this space as well, right? Especially at the segment of Tudor. You have Tag, you have you have Zenith, you have a couple of other watch brands, of course, within their umbrella. So I'm sure they didn't take it well, that resemblance.
thing is, though, it's not a bad look. I don't think it's a bad design whatsoever. I think it's a nice lady's design. Yeah, but it's a kind of a little tongue in cheek, though. I don't think Louis Vuitton wanted to be. I think if Tudor would have asked, he still would have been shot down. But the fact that they kind of did it presumptuously, maybe, I don't know if it's the right word, but I think I think it's kind of tongue in cheek. When you think about it, Louis Vuitton is what you get when you can't afford Hermes, just like in the way Tudor is when you can't afford a real Rolex. And I just don't think Louis Vuitton wanted that kind of
That's not
comparison.
true. That's not true.
Um,
It's a different kind of product to begin with. But anyway,
but either way, these came out, or they were supposed to come out, and they flopped, and they actually went through a lawsuit, which I can't imagine Tudor was very happy about.
of course.
And yes, it got a little publication, but surprisingly, Tudor kept it very quiet, very hush hush. And you know what? Props to them, both Louis Vuitton and Tudor, for keeping it out of the public's eye. But yeah, these ended up getting delayed for almost, like, I want to say 4 to 5 months, and you can get these watches now. But yeah, they don't look the same. I don't know. They're just kind of pointless, honestly. And like I said, back to the original point, steel and gold is not Tudor's forte. Gold is not Tudor's forte. It's not what Tudor's about. Tudor's it's the workman's watch. It's a poor man's Rolex. You don't put gold on a Tudor. It
Yeah, I
doesn't
mean,
make sense.
yeah, it's not even that. I just don't, you know, two-tone watch, it has to be executed at a certain level to not look off. Because I mean, when it doesn't hit, it doesn't hit, and it just looks cheap. Um,
It looks
and it's
gold
not,
plated. It
yeah,
looks, and not even that. It looks bronze. Honestly, it looks
it's
bronze.
not good. It's not good. So I'm much more excited about Tudor's experimentation with ceramic, with bronze, with sterling silver for case material. I wasn't too enthused for the gold Black Bay 58 that they made with the green dial.
No, and they're losing
Because,
massive money on it. They're
yeah,
losing massive money because the
absolutely.
point that it's getting to the point where discounts, I mean, ADs are trying to kick them out the door for 10, 15% off. So they're not making money off those things.
And again, I do disagree with the way that you presented Tudor's brand identity, but they do have a brand identity, and they don't have to stretch themselves that thin. They don't have to appeal to everyone. They don't have to have a watch for everyone in their range. I think it makes much more sense, actually, with a lot of brands to have a cohesive lineup of watches that make sense together, rather than trying to sell a watch or a trinket to every single potential buyer. I think that just dilutes the value of the brand, and it also is just an unnecessary expenditure of energy and resources at the level of manufacturing. So I agree with you. At the end of the day, they should just keep their vision intact, keep their integrity intact at some level, and produce watches that align with their larger purpose. If that's making tool
Absolutely.
watches, that's it. There's nothing wrong with that.
And I think that's the reason why Tudor decided to do so many releases, because I can't imagine those Royals. I know the Royals have picked up a little bit in popularity, but you look at the vast majority of Tudor's catalog, and it's really fairly undesirable. Nobody's buying the Glamour Day dates. Nobody's buying the, I don't know if they still make the Tudor Oyster. It's kind of like, it's essentially like a mock-up of a date chest. I think those actually got discontinued, to be honest with you. And not too many people are buying the steel and gold, with the exception of maybe the Black Bay 41 and the Chrono. And so what I think Tudor did, when the failure of the new Diet root beer, because a lot of people hate it due to its thickness, I think Tudor finally said, screw it, our books aren't looking too hot right now, and everyone's loving the Pro. Um, let's kind of release the Ranger. And I think the Ranger got a lot of the people swinging back towards Tudor. And with Omega having supply issues the way they are, I think Tudor kind of looked at it and said, screw it, let's put the nail in the coffin with Omega. And they released the Pelagos. And that's going to be, obviously, that's a huge hit. And I think at this point, I don't think we're supposed to see the Pelagos, but I think they just kind of said, screw it, now's the time. People are anxious to buy. Um, and you know what? A few of our last few of our watches, like the Dye Root Beer, like I said, isn't making the money, and I
Mhm.
think they needed to make up and recoup the massive losses that they're getting on the 58 in yellow gold. I think they needed to recoup those losses, and I think the Pelagos is doing a great job of doing that. Now, as far as next year, I don't think people should be expecting anything from Tudor. I think Tudor kind of exhausted everything for at least about a year and a half. I would be very surprised if they released another watch. If they do anything, I would think they would release a Polar Tudor Pro, and maybe convert all the bracelets over to a quick T-fit clasp,
Right.
like that's on the Bronze 41. But I think that's it. I think we're done seeing anything from Tudor. I'd be very surprised if they release something in November, maybe a date plug with 39. That'd be actually pretty dope, honestly. But I
Mhm.
think, yeah, I think Tudor spent. I think Tudor didn't really want to release the plugos this year, but hey, times are tough, and they see an opportunity to knock Omega over while they're having their supply issues. And you know what? I got to give credit to Tudor on that. They're seeing an opportunity and they're seizing it, and you can't blame them.
Yeah, that's an interesting theory. That's an interesting theory. I mean, that happened to be their strongest release, basically, of the year. That's the one that people can't find at this moment in time. That's the one that they are trying to get on wait lists for. I think it's still reasonably um, less difficult to get it through one of their boutiques. So if you actually happen to live in Southern California, or I think they have one in Miami and another one on the East Coast somewhere. But if you go through the boutiques, a lot of these models for Tudor are actually not impossible to get. Of course, you are basically giving up any chance of a discount or building a relationship with your local AD, if that's your intention, um, to build up and nurture that relationship, both for further discounts down the line and possibly for access to other brands, by all means. But the boutiques are actually quite helpful in acquiring pieces that you might not be able to find immediately elsewhere, or that you might have to wait a very long time for. This was the Parmigiani Toric perpetual calendar that just sold for less than 20K. And it has, of course, the moon phase, um, the leap year indicator, obviously the day of the week and month, and also retrograde date complication, which is always a very nice touch as well. And this one just sold for less than $20,000. I think someone made like a bid for it because it was on eBay for less than 20K already, and then it sold for even less than that. And again, that particular generation of Parmigiani Fleurier on the secondary market is still and a great value for the kind of watch you are getting. Again, a perpetual calendar executed at this level with a retrograde complication. You would be hard pressed to find as new at that price range. I brought that up because also, I have the links pinned there, but a couple of people in the community, including Jake Brooks, Bezels, and some others, are following me on Patreon as well. And if you become a member there, I actually send out a daily message, a daily mailer, so to speak, where I give you at least 3 different links to deals at different price segments for watches. So if you are interested in taking advantage of that, if you become a subscriber, a supporter on Patreon, you would be, of course, supporting the channel, helping me devote more time to it, help to increase the content in quality and quantity, but also get this free tip on a daily basis on the secondary market for watches. So feel free to sign up. The link is pinned there, and you also know that the other channels for your contributions, including the Cash App, which is $LHVVV, is still open, and the PayPal at lordhellespontv@gmail.com, lordhellespontv@gmail.com, which remains my primary point of contact as we speak, although it will probably be on the chopping block next for this corporate brand identity that we are presenting to you across all platforms as Young Brando. Gandog, it's nice to see you in the chat. I like the PO1, actually. I know it's not a popular model, but it really has that vibe of a vintage diver, which was actually the inspiration of its design. I think it was like a prototype from Tudor's archive that they never put before in serial production.
Yeah, probably for good reason.
Actually, to me, I like a lot of things from Tudor's lineup, but if I were, gun to my head, if I were given an option to buy a Tudor today with my own hard-earned money, I think it will have to be, Black Bay Bronze 58, Pelagos, the blue on the full titanium bracelet, or a PO1. I think those three for me are still the definitive models in the Tudor range. Again, there's so many things that they have released over the years that I like in some way or fashion. I do like their chronographs. I think the ceramic Tudor Black Bay is an amazing watch. Um, I love all the different iterations of the Pelagos as well. I can find something to like about each and every single model within the Black Bay 58 lineup too, and not only the bronze, but push comes to shove, it's between PO1, Black Bay 58 bronze, or the Pelagos in its full titanium glory.
The PL1 wouldn't be so bad. It's just the way they've got the lugs, kind of. I don't know what it is. It's just like that extra random chunk of steel out there. It makes it look weird.
Yeah, it's let me see if I can very quickly find the prototype that it was based on.
But on a
I mean,
side
it's
note,
just
actually, I did get offered a Ranger a couple days ago. They pulled one out of the safe for me, and it's like, oh, this is great, My cousin really likes his, but I would never buy a Ranger, honestly.
yeah, there's there's a friend that I know from here in Los Angeles who just got one through not through the boutique, but through one of the dealers here. He's very happy with it, and it's a good looking watch. I mean, he wears it even more often now than his Omega Seamaster, which is a watch that I like a little better, honestly. It's the original Bond with the south winding movement.
That has a date complication, makes it by far superior. But yeah, anyways, I don't know. Like I said, the watch itself looks great. I mean, yeah, the case is a little thick, but whatever. But it's that random chunk of steel, like on the end of the bracelet, that I find technically unnecessary. But I get why it's there too, because you're essentially what your end links double over the clasp, right? Essentially, because it's supposed to lock in the bezel. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a unique design. I like, as much as sometimes we treat Tudor as the sister brand to Rolex, as the younger sibling to Rolex. I like when they do a little bit of their own thing as well, in the sense, whether it's a different take on an established genre of tool watches, like the dive watch here, or whether it's experimentation with material, which eventually carries over to the Rolex line, as the LHD did to the new Rolex GMT Master 2. So I like seeing those kinds of things from Tudor, because everything else I already know I like, because I'm a vintage Rolex head, right? From a design standpoint, they just can't miss for me, because it pulls right at my heartstrings, right? That's the aesthetic that I have been living with since age 18. So, but I also like it when they diverge just a little bit to experiment, because I also know that carries over to the Rolex lineup sooner or later, because at the end of the day, Tudor is also Rolex's laboratory. It's not just their sister brand. Tudor is also where Rolex executes certain versions of their future with much lower stakes. And they have done splendidly so far, both on their own, as attracting their own clientele, and also serving as a very reliable alternative to a lot of Rolex enthusiasts who look to expand their collection in different ways, but perhaps, just like the mothership, don't want to take too much of a risk, too much of financial risk in this case. Full on John, I have one of the original steel and gold Heritage 41 black bays. Love the watches in design, but way too thick and heavy, as with the GMT, like Big Meech said. Yeah, I mean, for me, that's the problem with a lot of post-ETA manufacturer movement Tudors. They're a little too thick for my taste, especially for that aesthetic, right? Which, again,
Correct. That is a heavy watch. I've owned it before. It is heavy.
yeah. So when I look at it, when I see it in the case, my heart is pumping. I love it. It's exactly what I'm looking for in a watch. Once I put it on the wrist, except for the Black Bay 58s, it always leaves something to be desired for me. And usually the problem for me is the thickness. Peeping Time says the P01 case extensions with hinges makes it difficult to fit an aftermarket strap. Yeah, that can be a problem. Guys, it's the last few minutes. So if you have any questions, if you have any lingering issues, feel free to direct those questions with a super chat. Otherwise, we are getting ready to wrap up here as we approach the midnight in Southern California. Meech, welcome back. Do you have any last words? I hope you keep coming back.
Don't buy garbage. All right, guys. In these tough economic times, you can't afford to be buying garbage Tudors, Breitlings, Tag Heuers, Longines. It's garbage. You'll never get your money back. Buy Steel Sports. Steel Sports. And whatever L Professor says, don't buy into the propaganda. The market's never been stronger.
Yes, I think I would also take my financial advice and economic understanding from Meech rather than an actually certified professor of economics. Yeah, he was supposed to be reporting from an undisclosed location today, but he's also very busy. So we'll see. We'll see. He'll come back next week probably, and maybe we'll have a full-fledged debate. Meech, what do you think?
Maybe.
Between
I just know that this whole
Big Meech
propaganda is
and Big Meech and El Professor, we'll have
exactly
an
why you
economics
should keep
debate.
buying Steel Sports. Steel Sports.
Economics
That's why.
101. Economics 101. Also, are you still committed to doing the listicles with me? The favorite.
Yeah. Funny enough.
top 10?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, Lloyd. Did you ever figure that out? Was that a date just she was wearing? I couldn't figure it out.
That's why I'm so careful. I want to pump my Instagram a little bit on these broadcasts. Want to tell everyone, follow me on Instagram, etc. But I'm always scared that I will end up clicking to the messages and something will pop up that you sent me that won't align with the family-friendly atmosphere we are trying to cultivate in this show.
Honestly, Lord, I think you should plug her Instagram. Honestly, I mean, look, she had a rough day today. All right, life was tough for her. She got into a bit of a fender bender. Life's tough. I don't think she'll ever financially recoup on that. It's hard out there.
Wow, man! Is that the library girl that you
It
shared
is
with?
actually.
Okay.
It is.
I mean, the debut work was pretty impressive, I have to say. I haven't really followed her body of work, shall we say, since then. But that was a good beginning.
Yeah, actually, she's actually kind of fallen off a little bit. I don't know, a bit off topic, I guess, but yeah, just I think shortly after her last contract, now she claims she allegedly left on her own terms from work and took a sabbatical. I think she was told by, I think she was told honestly to sober the fuck up, because she was fairly open about it on her Instagram story, saying like, yeah, I've been needing to sober up for the past, I don't know, like several months. Um, and you can kind of tell it shows because she's 25 years old right now, but I would peg her to be like in her 30s now, honestly, early 30s. But yeah, I mean, it's she at one point she said at one point she was doing a lot of excessive drinking, a lot of snow, and then a lot of greens on top of that. She I don't know. Allegedly, she's sobered up for the most part, and she's back into work now.
Mm.
I think her contract. I think she renewed a contract for two more two more seams, if you will, and then I don't know what's going to happen after that. Honestly,
Mm. Well, we need all this contextual information when we are approaching our rankings in the most professional manner, as would befit such an expert as you, Big Meech. And I don't claim any expertise, but I'm an enthusiast, as you know, and I'm always a great student. So
yeah, I keep my ear to the ground essentially. You know, and I think the most interesting story here is, excuse me. I think the most interesting story is Bella Danger's actually getting. I don't know if she's getting her law degree, but she's getting her doctorates in law and something in law, which is actually it's actually kind of out of the blue. That's actually a pretty hefty hill to climb, and yeah, apparently she's actually pretty well
yeah.
educated, I guess, for the most part.
Well, I mean, look, whether we are talking about the JD or something beyond that, that's more than my little mind can handle for sure. Um, yeah, getting into the law school is hard, and finishing it and getting a proper job is even harder. It's not, you can't take it for granted anymore.
Oh,
Um,
the fact that she's going for a doctorate, because I know she did the interview with Barstool Sports briefly, and they're like I, I know she's got a master's degree in some. I think it is law related. I can't remember, but I just know that like she was like the interview was taking back to like, oh, you're going in for your doctorate. She's like, yeah. She's like, no, like I said, I don't know if she's actually going to go as far as going through a bar exam or not, but nonetheless, it's actually pretty impressive.
mm, yeah, that is impressive. That is impressive. And I mean, she's a member of the tribe, so I have a natural affinity for that. Um, on that note, guys, we love you. It was really wonderful for Big Meech to drop by and also indulge me. When I was talking about all these brands that he has very little love for and a lot of hate for in his heart, and he tolerated me, so I appreciate you, Meech. Um, See, JB is a man of culture. He knows she was going for her JD. Um, Thanks for clarifying that, Jake Brooks. Um, we love you, everyone. Thank you for your presence and support. Thank you for all your engagement. Um, Feel free to, again, hit the like button if you like it, share the link, spread the word, and help us expand this community. All the other links for your contributions are there. If you sign up on Patreon, I will be sending you daily links for watch deals. You can otherwise always contact me through the comments. You can contact me via my email address there, which is connected to my PayPal as well, at lordhellespontv@gmail.com, lordhellespontv@gmail.com. And I also have a Cash App, which is at $LHVVV, $LHVVV. Kobe says Spence versus Crawford is happening this year. Are you sure? I thought it was postponed until next because Crawford is fighting this Russian Armenian guy, Avanesian, and I thought Spence is fighting Keith Thurman instead. I guess there's a sudden change in plans again. If it happens, I would buy the pay-per-view and would certainly do a live play-by-play here. That's the kind of fight that would deserve that for sure. All right. I'll see you tomorrow at the same time. Take care, guys.
Take
Goodbye.
care.